Colorado's mountains are breathtaking. Peaks rise like jagged teeth against the sky. Forests stretch endlessly, and lakes glimmer like shards of glass in sunlight. But beneath this beauty lies a hidden darkness. Some lakes are known only for their serenity. Others are known for the whispers that echo across the water at night, for shadows that drift along the shore when no one is there, for the cold chill that seems to seep into bones without reason. Imagine standing at the edge of a mountain lake, the mist curling over its surface. The air is crisp, yet feels heavy with unseen presence. Ripples form across the water, though there is no wind. A distant splash echoes, followed by silence. The reflection of the moon shivers, but what cause it is impossible to see. Colorado's mountain lakes hold stories of vanished hikers, mysterious drownings, and spirits unwilling to leave the waters behind. Tonight, we explore 25 haunted mountain lakes in Colorado, each surrounded by dark legends that have chilled locals and adventurers for decades. From high above the tree line to hidden valleys, Colorado's lakes are as beautiful as they are mysterious. These waters have long been part of local folklore, carrying tales of tragedy, unexplainable phenomena, and ghostly sightings. Some lakes are calm in daylight, but awaken with whispers at night. Mist rises from their surfaces, shaping into figures that disappear the moment they are seen. Rocks skip across still waters. Footsteps echo along their banks, and lights appear on the horizon with no source. Each lake has its own story. Some speak of lost lovers whose spirits wander the shores. Others tell of travelers who vanish without a trace. And some simply pulse with an energy that cannot be explained, as though the water itself remembers the past. As we journey across these haunted waters, consider this. If you stood alone on the shore of a mountain lake, mist curling at your feet, would you dare to peer into the darkness and see what watches back at you? Shadow Lake lies cradled within a narrow canyon, its waters dark and still, reflecting the towering cliffs that surround it. Mist hovers above the surface, curling and twisting with the morning light, giving the lake an ethereal and almost otherworldly quality. The air is heavy with silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant call of a bird. Travelers who approach the shoreline speak of whispers that drift across the water, voices that carry without source. They seem to speak from nowhere, echoing off the canyon walls, wrapping around listeners like a cold, invisible fog. The whispers are soft at first, almost comforting, yet they linger long after the sound has passed, leaving a sense of unease that grows with each step closer to the lake. At night, Shadow Lake transforms into a realm of shifting shadows and subtle movements. Dark shapes glide across the water, their forms appearing for a moment before vanishing as if they were never there. Some take the shape of figures, fleeting and indistinct, while others are simply movements in the darkness, reflections disturbed in ways that defy the wind or the current. Those who have witnessed them speak of a presence both ancient and patient, as if the lake itself watches and waits. Hikers who walk along the shoreline often report an uncanny sensation, a cold presence brushing past their shoulders or lingering just behind. The feeling grows stronger in the evening, when the light fades and the lake becomes a black mirror, hiding its depths and secrets from prying eyes. The surrounding canyon amplifies every sound. Footsteps echo off the cliffs, carrying farther than they should. A splash in the water resonates like a shout, and whispers that might have been dismissed in the open forest take on an urgent clarity. Travelers often pause, sensing that the lake has its own rhythm, a pulse that dictates movement, sound, and attention in ways impossible to anticipate. Despite the cold and the whispers, the lake draws visitors in. Its surface mirrors the sky above, capturing the fading hues of sunset. The reflections are almost perfect, yet something always feels slightly off. Objects appear where none exist. Ripples form without wind, and shadows shift in ways that defy logic. The reflections are almost perfect, yet something always feels slightly off, as if reality itself bends when one gazes too long. Campsites near the lake offer little comfort. Fires that are lit seem to struggle against an unseen dampness, smoke rising in spirals before dissipating into nothing. The air feels heavier, denser, carrying a weight that is almost perceptible. Some hikers speak of dreams that haunt them after a night at the lake, images of dark waters and moving shadows replaying in their minds long after they have left the canyon. The flora around Shadow Lake seems to respond to the presence of visitors. Trees lean toward the water, their branches brushing the surface as if reaching for something below. Moss grows thicker near the shore, soft and damp underfoot, muffling steps and adding to the sense of isolation. Even the wildlife appears cautious. Birds avoid the trees near the water, and small animals rarely venture close to the shoreline, leaving the space eerily quiet and expectant. Early morning brings a different kind of haunting. Figures seem to appear within the mist, outlines of people or creatures, that vanish as quickly as they are seen. The whispers return, softer now, blending with the morning wind, yet carrying the same strained familiarity that unsettles the soul. The lake does not reveal its secrets all at once. It offers glimpses, teasing the mind, ensuring that every visitor leaves with questions that linger longer than fear. Even the reflections in the water seem to have their own life. The surface can look smooth and glassy one moment, and then ripple as though something beneath moves deliberately. Some have reported seeing shapes that do not match the surrounding landscape, forms that suggest eyes watching or hands brushing the water. Others describe fleeting shadows that seem to follow their movements along the shore, vanishing when attention is fully focused. Travelers often find themselves pausing mid-step, drawn by a sense of presence that cannot be explained. The lake holds a magnetic pull, subtle yet insistent, guiding the mind and the body along paths that might otherwise have been avoided. There is a patience in the stillness, a quiet authority that commands attention without aggression, leaving each visitor aware that they are guests in a space that predates them. As night deepens, the sounds of the canyon fade into something more intimate. The wind carries the whispering voices closer, curling around travelers as they move along the shore. Stars reflect faintly in the water, though they seem to shimmer and move independently of the sky above. Each ripple, each shadow, each whisper combines into an atmosphere that is both mesmerizing and unnerving, a delicate balance of beauty and unease. Shadow Lake remains timeless, suspended between presence and memory, between the natural and the unseen. Those who linger leave with more questions than answers, carrying with them the echo of whispers, the touch of cold air, and the fleeting glimpse of dark shapes that move without explanation. The lake does not demand belief, but ensures that those who visit will never see the world in quite the same way again. Blackwater Lake stretches across the forested valley like a dark mirror. Its surface is calm and still, yet it holds an unsettling presence, as if the water itself is aware of those who wander too close. Mist clings to the edges, curling around the trunks of ancient pines and spilling onto the narrow shoreline. The air is cool and damp, carrying the faint scent of wet earth and decaying leaves. For centuries, travelers have spoken of the lake's strange energy. Locals warn of sudden fogs that rise without warning, swallowing the water and the surrounding forest in a ghostly haze. On quiet nights, when the moon drifts behind thick clouds, some claim they have heard voices whispering across the lake, calling names that should not be known. Those who approach the water often describe it as unnervingly black, as though sunlight refuses to penetrate its depths. Shadows seem to move beneath the surface, shifting and stirring as though guided by unseen currents. At times, travelers have glimpsed lights floating across the lake, faint and flickering, bobbing as though carried by invisible hands. The lights vanish when approached, leaving only the whisper of the wind and the ripple of the water. Blackwater Lake has a history of disappearances. Over the years, several drownings have been reported, and the circumstances surrounding them remain unexplained. Bodies have been found miles downstream, or sometimes never at all. The lake does not give up its secrets easily, and many believe it is a place where the living and the lost converge. Even during the day, the lake feels alive. Mist rises from the water in delicate tendrils, coiling around rocks and reeds along the shore. Occasional glimpses of figures waiting in a haze send chills down the spine of any onlooker. These shapes appear solid at first, only to dissolve into the mist when approached. They are fleeting, like memories that do not belong to the present. Travelers have shared stories of hearing their own names spoken from the water. The voice is faint, almost pleading, echoing across the ripples, carrying an urgency that cannot be ignored. Some who have paused to listen claim they felt compelled to step closer, only to find themselves drawn back by an invisible force. An instinctive warning to keep distance. At night, the atmosphere transforms. The fog thickens and the sounds of the forest are muted, leaving only the subtle lapping of water against the shore. It is in this quiet that the lake reveals its true presence. Mist-covered figures drift along the edges, their forms tall and indistinct, moving with a slow, deliberate rhythm. They vanish when approached, leaving no trace beyond a chill that seeps into the bones. Visitors often describe a feeling of being watched. Even when the forest seems empty, eyes seem to follow every step, tracking the intruders across the dark water. The sensation is unnerving, a silent warning that Blackwater Lake does not welcome outsiders lightly. Some have reported the sound of footsteps behind them, yet when they turn, no one is there. The only evidence is the echo of the footsteps on the damp ground. Blackwater Lake has inspired legends among those who live nearby. Stories of spirits bound to the water, of lost travelers wandering the shoreline, have been passed down through generations. Some believe the lake is a threshold, a place where the line between the living and the departed is thin. Others insist it is a mirror, reflecting the fears and memories of those who gaze into its depths. Despite the warnings, the lake continues to draw visitors. Photographers arrive hoping to capture the ethereal fog. Hikers wander its trails searching for the perfect view. And curious travelers test their courage by venturing into the night. Yet almost every account ends the same way, with the unmistakable sensation that the lake is watching, waiting, and never quite empty. Blackwater Lake remains untouched by time. The forest surrounding it grows wild and thick, and the water remains dark, holding secrets beneath its surface. Each ripple, each flicker of light, each whisper in the mist, is a reminder of the unseen forces that inhabit this place. For those who encounter it, Blackwater Lake is not just a body of water. It is a presence, a living memory of all who have come too close and all who have been claimed by its depths. Crystal Mirror Lake rests in a quiet valley, its surface perfectly still during daylight hours. The surrounding mountains rise sharply, their peaks dusted with snow that glows faintly under the sun. The water reflects every detail, turning the lake into a flawless glass canvas. Travelers often pause at its edge, mesmerized by the mirror-like clarity and the sense of untouched serenity. Even in the calmest moments, there is a subtle unease that seems to hang in the air. Shadows linger longer than they should, stretching along the shoreline and between trees. Birds circle overhead, their cries echoing against the cliffs, yet sometimes vanish suddenly as if fleeing from something unseen. As evening falls, the lake begins to change. A light mist rises from the surface, curling in delicate tendrils that drift across the water. The reflections of the mountains blur, as though the glass is melted into liquid silver. Campers who have stayed near the water report hearing soft footsteps circling their tents. Yet when they emerge, the shoreline remains empty. Small lantern-like lights are often seen hovering just above the water. They drift lazily, moving in patterns that seem deliberate. Some rise and fall like floating orbs, while others shimmer and vanish without warning. Witnesses describe a sensation of being watched, an invisible presence that observes without a sound. At night, the forest around the lake becomes a chorus of whispers. The wind carries the rustle of leaves, yet it never seems to touch the water. Shadows shift between the trees, glimpses of figures that disappear when approached. The deeper into the darkness one ventures, the more the lake feels alive, almost sentient, as if it remembers every footstep and every whisper from generations past. The temperature drops sharply after dusk, bringing a biting chill that clings to the skin. Fog rises thicker over the lake, obscuring the edges of the shoreline and transforming familiar landmarks into unfamiliar silhouettes. Campfires flicker against the mist, their light reflecting in the water like tiny stars. The further from the lake one moves, the more the sounds of water and forest seem amplified, creating a feeling of isolation. Stories passed down by locals speak of travelers who vanish without a trace. Some claim they followed the lantern-like lights too closely, entranced by their glow. Others recount hearing a voice calling their name from a mist, only to find the source gone when they turned. There is a sense that the lake holds memories, fragments of those who have lingered too long, trapped in the shifting reflection of its surface. On rare occasions, the surface of the lake ripples without wind. A gentle disturbance moves across the water as if something beneath is stirring. Ripples form concentric circles that expand outward, breaking the perfect mirror. Witnesses say it feels like an invitation, a subtle pull that beckons them closer to the center, where the lanterns hover and shadows linger. Even in daylight, the lake carries a quiet warning. Wildlife avoids certain areas, leaving patches of shoreline eerily empty. Travelers report sudden chills, inexplicable drops in temperature, and an ever-present feeling of being observed. The tranquility of the lake is deceptive, masking a restless energy that becomes more noticeable as the sun dips lower and shadows lengthen across the water. Nestled deep within a forest of towering pines, Whispering Pines Lake rests like a hidden jewel, its dark waters reflecting the ever-shifting canopy above. The dense trees surrounding it sway gently, carrying the faintest sounds across the lake, a murmur that seems almost alive. Visitors often speak of hearing whispers on the wind, soft voices that vanish when approached, leaving a lingering sense of unease. The lake has long been a destination for those drawn to solitude and the quiet beauty of untouched wilderness. During the day, sunlight filters through the branches, casting dappled patterns on the surface of the water. Birds call and insects hum, and the air carries a scent of pine and damp earth. Yet even in the brightness of daylight, there is a subtle tension, a feeling that the forest watches, and that the lake holds secrets that remain just out of reach. Along the shoreline, abandoned cabins stand as relics of a past long forgotten. Their weathered wood and broken windows tell stories of families who once sought refuge here, only to vanish from memory, only to vanish from memory. It is near these structures that the whispers grow louder, low murmurs, and soft giggles that tease the edges of perception, only to find the sand. Campers and hikers often report hearing footsteps that seem to circle them, only to find the sand. Only to find the sand and underbrush undisturbed. Only to find the sand and underbrush undisturbed. At dusk, the atmosphere changes. Shadows stretch across the water, and the lake itself appears to pulse with an unseen presence. The still surface ripples without wind, as if something beneath the water stirs with quiet intent. Those who linger near the shore speak of a feeling that they are not alone, a cold pressure that brushes against the skin, urging retreat, but drawing them closer at the same time. Evenings at Whispering Pines Lake are marked by an uncanny calm, the kind that presses against the mind and invites imagination to wander. Lanterns or campfires flicker, throwing long shadows over the trees and water, and in these moments, the whispers seem almost conversational, like echoes of memories carried on the breeze. Some swear they can see figures moving among the pines, shapes that disappear the instant they are confronted. Others feel eyes upon them, a silent scrutiny that never manifests in solid form, but lingers in every sense. Boaters who venture out onto the lake tell of reflections that shift unnaturally, of shapes that glide beneath the surface, and vanish when looked at directly. The water mirrors the surrounding forest perfectly, yet it can seem distorted, as though hiding something just out of sight. A sudden splash or ripple can send a shiver through. even the most experienced visitors, reminding them that the lake is alive in a way that defies explanation. Local lore suggests that the lake has always been a place of subtle enchantment, a threshold where the natural and supernatural intertwine. Some believe the whispers are remnants of the past, the voices of those who once lived and worked in the cabins, forever bound to the waters they cherished. Others claim the lake possesses a consciousness of its own, watching those who enter, gauging intentions and responding in kind. Winter transforms Whispering Pines Lake into a realm of eerie serenity. Snow blankets the surrounding forest, muffling sound and creating a landscape of frozen stillness. The whispers do not cease. They seem amplified in the silence, curling through the trees and settling on the ice-covered water. Shadows take on new shapes, elongated and distorted by the low winter sun, giving the lake an otherworldly presence. This has drawn photographers, adventurers, and seekers of the strange for decades. The night is when the Lakia-esque reputation becomes undeniable. Moonlight glints off the water, illuminating patches of fog that drift lazily along the surface. Campers describe lantern-like lights hovering above the lake, appearing and disappearing without a trace. The soft voices continue, sometimes forming indistinct words, as if the lake itself is attempting communication. The wind carries scents that cannot be named, hints of pine resin mixed with something ancient, grounding yet unidentifiable. Whispering Pines Lake is not a place for those seeking certainty. It thrives on ambiguity, the space between what is known and what is imagined. Each visitor experiences it differently. Some feel an unshakable chill, a weight pressing at the chest, while others are drawn into a trance of fascination, unable to leave despite unease. Many return home with stories they cannot fully explain, memories that linger like shadows at the edge of thought. Despite its mysteries, the lake remains beautiful, a paradox of tranquility and tension. It teaches caution and curiosity in equal measure. Walkers along its shore are compelled to listen closely, to notice the smallest movements, to respect the presence that dwells unseen beneath the trees and water. Even the most skeptical cannot deny the sensations that ripple across the senses here, the subtle signs that Whispering Pines Lake is more than just a body of water. By dawn, the whispers fade into the morning air, replaced by the rustle of waking wildlife and the gentle lapping of waves. Mist rises from the surface, curling among the pines and softening the edges of the abandoned cabins. It is in this fleeting light that the lake shows its full beauty, serene yet inscrutable, calm yet filled with hidden depths. Visitors leave with a sense of awe and a lingering question, as a part of the Lakia-esque enigma has followed them home. Whispering Pines Lake remains a place where mystery and nature coexist. Its waters hold reflections of the past and the present, secrets whisper on the wind, and shadows that never truly vanish. For those who seek it, it is a reminder that the world is full of quiet wonders and subtle terrors. A space where imagination meets reality, and the forest itself seems to breathe with life beyond understanding. Frostbite Lake rests at the top of a high valley, where jagged peaks encircle the frozen waters like silent guardians. Snow drifts constantly across the slopes, shaped by gusting winds into sharp ridges and soft valleys, creating a landscape that seems untouched by time. The air is thin and biting, each breath carrying a chill that seeps deep into the bones. Hikers who venture to Frostbite Lake often speak of sudden, unexplained chills. The temperature seems to drop in an instant, and the wind carries sounds that do not belong to the mountains. Echoes of distant screams sometimes travel across the ice-covered lake, faint at first, then fading into the stillness as if the valley itself swallows the sound. The effect is disorienting, leaving travelers unsure whether they are hearing reality or something born from the stark solitude. The snow near the lake bears traces of movement, footprints that appear without explanation. They lead across frozen surfaces and through dense patches of pines, yet often vanish without reaching a destination. Some hikers report seeing figures standing silently at the tree line, watching from a distance before disappearing as if melted into the winter shadows. These encounters leave a lingering unease, a sensation of being observed by something both patient and intangible. The lake itself is a mirror of cold perfection. Ice stretches across its surface, reflecting the muted colors of dawn and dusk in ways that feel almost unnatural. Snow settles lightly atop the ice, masking its depth and creating illusions of stability where there may be none. Even the simplest ripple or gust of wind seems to carry hidden significance, hinting at movement beneath the frozen surface that cannot be explained by natural causes alone. The surrounding forest adds to the sense of isolation. Trees are heavy with frost, their branches bending under the weight, creating corridors that feel both inviting and threatening. Wind slips through the trees with a haunting whistle, moving in unpredictable patterns that seem to trace the movements of unseen observers. Footfalls in the snow are muffled, yet every sound echoes, amplified by the canyon-like contours of the valley, making it difficult to distinguish between natural and unnatural noises. Approaching the lake at twilight brings an even greater intensity. Shadows lengthen across the ice, distorting shapes and hinting at forms that vanish when looked at directly. The light catches the frost on tree trunks and rocks, turning them into jagged prisms that seem to shimmer with life. Travelers speak of a presence at the edge of perception, a subtle awareness that they are not alone even when the valley appears empty. Some hikers have described the sensation of being followed. The air behind them carries a cold pressure, and the snow sometimes shifts as if someone steps just beyond vision. Whispers are carried on the wind, fleeting and unintelligible, yet familiar enough to create the impression of voices remembered from elsewhere. These experiences intensify after dark, when the lake freezes into a black expanse that seems endless and opaque. The night at Frostbite Lake is profound and immersive. Figures can appear as fleeting shapes along the treeline, almost human in proportion, yet impossible to approach. The chill grows more acute, seeping through clothing and into muscle, yet the cold does not drive visitors away. Instead, it sharpens awareness, heightening every sense and drawing attention to the subtle movements of the shadows that dance on the frozen landscape. Mist sometimes rises from areas where the ice is thinnest, curling and twisting like smoke. The mist obscures vision, creating corridors of gray that appear solid until stepped into. Within the fog, travelers have reported glimpses of shapes that vanish the moment they are noticed. The valley seems to bend perception, transforming ordinary trees, rocks, and snowdrifts into beings that watch, shift, and recede with the observer's gaze. Despite the sense of isolation and unease, Frostbite Lake draws explorers and hikers with an irresistible allure. Its beauty is stark, pure, and uncompromising, offering views that cannot be captured by photographs or memory alone. The silence is absolute, yet alive, carrying the weight of centuries of wind, snow, and the stories of those who had traversed the frozen valley before. Even the simplest movements around the lake feel amplified. A footstep can echo for dozens of meters, and a snowdrift can collapse with the faintest pressure, and the ice itself seems to respond to proximity. Travelers report that time behaves strangely in the valley, minutes stretching into hours, and returning in ways that feel abrupt and unnatural. Every moment spent here is a delicate balance between awe and apprehension. The legends of Frostbite Lake are subtle, whispered between hikers and guides who know the valley well. Stories speak of disappearances, of glimpses of shadowy figures, and of sudden chills that warn of unseen watchers. Each tale adds to the atmosphere, layering the experience with both caution and fascination. The lake is not threatening in a conventional sense, but it is profoundly alive in ways that defy understanding. Dawn transforms the lake yet again. Frost and snow catch the early light, turning the frozen surface into a kaleidoscope of shimmering patterns. Figures, shadows, and impressions from the night may linger or vanish entirely. The valley exhales, and a quiet peace settles briefly over the landscape, reminding travelers that they are guests in a space that exists outside ordinary time. A place shaped by cold, stillness, and the unseen presence that calls itself Frostbite Lake. Hollow Rock Lake lies nestled within a rugged valley. Surrounded by jagged cliffs that rise sharply from the water's edge, the rock faces catch the fading light of the sun, casting long, distorted shadows across the lake. The surface of the water is unnaturally still, as if holding its breath, reflecting the cliffs and sky in a way that seems slightly off, almost unreal. Legends speak of climbers who have vanished after reaching the lake's shores. Some were experienced adventurers, well-prepared and cautious, yet their fates remain a mystery. Locals say the lake does not welcome the curious, and those who linger too long may find themselves drawn into the cliffs or swallowed by the dark water. Visitors describe the reflections in the lake as strange and unsettling. Trees appear twisted, cliffs stretch in impossible angles, and in some instances, a persona's own reflection moves independently, a subtle hint of something watching from below. The sensation is fleeting at first, almost easy to dismiss. But for those who notice, it is enough to awaken a deep unease. Mists often gather around Hollow Rock Lake, rising from the water like smoke and weaving to the jagged cliffs. The fog softens the edges of reality, blurring the line between rock and water, shadow and substance. Within the mist, shadowy figures have been reported, lingering beneath the surface or slipping between the rocks, watching silently. They vanish when approached, leaving only a ripple across the still water and a lingering chill in the air. The lake itself seems alive. Ripples form without wind, as though something beneath the surface stirs. The water darkens unnaturally with the passing clouds, swallowing reflections and casting a deep, inky black that hints at unseen depths. Even in daylight, there is a feeling of weight, as though the lake holds memories that are not meant for the living. At night, Hollow Rock Lake transforms. The cliffs loom like silent sentinels, and the water mirrors the pale light of the moon, with a cold, unwavering gaze. Sounds carry strangely across the valley, footsteps echoing from cliffs that hold no one, and distant voices whispering without source. Campers report waking to the sensation of eyes watching from the darkness. Though no human presence can be found, climbers and explorers often speak of compulsion near the water's edge. Some describe an urge to look deeper, to peer beneath the surface, where shadows move in patterns that mimic life. Others feel a pull toward the cliffs, drawn as if by an invisible force. Many retreat before they understand why, but a few have never returned. The lake keeps its secrets well. The surrounding forest adds to the lake's mystery. Trees grow in uneven patterns along the rocky slopes, their roots gripping the cliffs as though resisting some unseen force. Leaves whisper in the wind, carrying sounds that can be mistaken for distant footsteps or hushed conversation. Even birds avoid the water, their absence lending a heavy silence that deepens a sense of isolation. Visitors who have stayed late into twilight describe fleeting glimpses of figures along the shoreline, watching from behind boulders or waiting just beneath the water. Fleeting glimpses of figures along the shoreline, watching from behind boulders or waiting just beneath the water. Watching from behind boulders or waiting just beneath the water. These moments are fleeting, yet they leave a lasting impression, a reminder that Hollow Rock Lake is not merely a place, but a presence that observes all who enter its domain. A reminder that Hollow Rock Lake is not merely a place, but a presence that observes all who enter its domain. But a presence that observes all who enter its domain. Hollow Rock Lake is also a place of contrasts. Sunlight glimmers on its surface during the day, casting a deceptive serenity over the jagged cliffs and misted shores. Yet beneath this beauty lies an undercurrent of unease, a tension that grows with every step closer to the water. The lake seems to respond to attention, as if aware of those who watch and listen, measuring curiosity against caution, that they were part of something larger, something beyond understanding. And the inexplicable sensations that refuse to fade, even miles from the lake. That is difficult to explain, a haunting reminder. They guard rather than the stories told aloud. The legends and sightings are numerous, but they all share a common thread. Where reality bends, where reflections are unreliable, and where shadows hold more than they reveal. It is a landscape both beautiful and unsettling, demanding respect from those who venture into its cliffs and along its shores. Even today, travelers are drawn to Hollow Rock Lake. The allure of its mystery, the challenge of its cliffs, and the chance to witness its strange phenomena are irresistible. Yet every visitor senses the same truth. The lake is patient, watching and waiting, holding its secrets beneath the still, dark water. For those who linger too long, the boundary between the known and unknown is thin, and Hollow Rock Lake keeps its own counsel, silent and eternal. Moonshadow Lake rests in a remote valley, surrounded by dense forests and steep cliffs. Its surface shimmers under the soft glow of the moon, reflecting the night sky with an almost unreal clarity. The air is cool and carries a faint scent of pine and damp earth, grounding visitors in the quiet of the wilderness while hinting at something just beyond perception. During the day, the lake appears calm and inviting. Mist rises gently from its surface in the morning, dissolving into the crisp air as sunlight touches the water. Birds flit between the trees, and small fish create ripples that shimmer in fleeting patterns. But as the sun sets and shadows grow, the atmosphere begins to change, and the lake takes on a more mysterious presence. Under the moonlight, Moonshadow Lake seems to glow from within. Travelers speak of faint, drifting lights that move across the water, as if floating above it rather than reflecting off it. These lights appear suddenly, lingering for moments before vanishing as quietly as they came. Those who witness them often describe a sense of wonder mixed with unease, as if the lake itself is aware of their presence. Mists often roll across the water in the evening, thickening without any wind to guide them. Paths near the lake become obscured, and familiar landmarks take on unfamiliar forms. Hikers have reported feeling drawn toward the lake, a gentle tug that seems to guide their steps closer to the water. Some say it is an unseen force, subtle and compelling, inviting them to linger at the edge of the reflective surface. The surrounding forest is alive with sound at night. Leaves rustle without a breeze, and distant animal calls echo in ways that seem too deliberate to be random. Shadows move at the corners of vision, vanishing when looked at directly. The combination of silence, shifting mists, and soft illumination from the lake creates an atmosphere both serene and charged with tension. Occasionally, the lake itself seems to respond to visitors. Ripples form without wind or disturbance, expanding across the still surface as if a presence beneath is stirring. Those standing at the shore report feeling a faint vibration underfoot, as though the water carries a memory of every step taken along its edge. The sense of being watched is subtle but persistent, a quiet pressure that keeps the mind alert. Campers near Moonshadow Lake have shared stories of waking to hear footsteps around their tents. They step outside to find the ground undisturbed, and the lake is calm as before. Lanterns flicker in the mist, casting elongated shadows that appear to move independently. Even without direct sightings, the feeling of an unseen companion lingers, a reminder that the lake holds more than mere reflections. Occasional travelers claim to see shapes moving just beneath the surface. Dark forms shift slowly, vanishing when approached, leaving behind only the suggestion of movement. At times, the surface glimmers with brief flashes of light, like hidden gems caught in the moon's glow. These occurrences are fleeting but leave a lasting impression, deepening the lake's reputation as a place of subtle, unexplainable phenomena. Despite its mysterious qualities, Moonshadow Lake is not dangerous in any overt way. There is no violence or threat, only the quiet pull of curiosity and the gentle suspense that comes from the unknown. Those who spend time near describe a mixture of awe and caution, an awareness that the lake has a rhythm and memory all its own. The mist thickens as midnight approaches, rising from the water in slow, curling waves. Reflections distort, creating phantom images that appear to float across the surface. Trees along the shore bend slightly in the still air, their dark forms mirrored perfectly, yet subtly off, as if the reflection is aware of more than the physical world. Visitors report a feeling of suspended time, a moment where the world narrows to the water, the mist, and the gentle pull toward the center of the lake. Morning brings clarity and a sense of normalcy. The mist dissipates, lights vanish, and shadows retreat. Yet the memory of its nocturnal enchantment lingers with those who have visited, a quiet reminder that beauty and mystery often coexist in ways that defy explanation. Moonshadow Lake endures as a place both inviting and enigmatic, where the natural world blends seamlessly with something intangible. Travelers leave with stories of faint lights, shifting mists, and the subtle sensation of being drawn into the unknown. The lake is a reflection not just of the mountains and sky, but of curiosity, imagination, and the quiet thrill of exploring a place that seems alive in ways beyond ordinary perception. Even in daylight, the memory of night remains. Those who have walked its shores speak of the pull still felt in their minds, the whispers of movement beneath the water, and the haunting allure of a lake that exists both in the world and beyond it. Moonshadow Lake is not just a destination, but an experience, a reminder that some places hold secrets meant to be felt, not understood. Phantom Creek Lake rests quietly within a valley carved by rushing waters long ago. Connected to a network of streams, the lake seems to pulse with the memory of past floods, carrying whispers of the lives once touched and lost by sudden torrents. Visitors approach cautiously, sensing a presence that is not immediately visible. Even during the day, the lake exudes a stillness that feels deliberate, as if it is holding its breath. Ripples spread across the water for no discernible reason, and sunlight glimmers off dark depths where shadows shift with subtle purpose. Those who linger often remark on the feeling of being watched, a silent awareness that seems to extend from the water to the surrounding forest. At the water's edge, twisted roots and moss-covered stones tell the story of nature reclaiming the land. Paths once worn by hikers now vanish into undergrowth. And abandoned campsites hint at human visits long forgotten. Locals speak in hushed tones of figures that walk along the shoreline, in heavy fog, moving with deliberate slowness, before fading like smoke. The figures are never solid, never fully formed, yet their presence is undeniable to those who see them. Sounds carry strangely across the lake. Voices call out, faint at first, as if carried on the wind. Some swear they hear cries for help, urgent but distant, echoing through the trees and disappearing before they can respond. Others hear whispers that seem like fragments of conversation, words that almost make sense yet remain just out of reach. The fog amplifies these sounds, turning the lake into a theater of the unseen, where imagination and reality blur. The lake itself seems to mirror more than the forest and sky. On certain days, reflections appear that do not correspond with anything present. Shapes move beneath the surface, subtle at first, only to vanish when approached. The water can be calm and perfectly still one moment, then ripple as if stirred by unseen hands the next. Even experienced anglers and hikers report feeling a hesitation in the air, a pause in the natural rhythm of the surroundings that signals something beyond comprehension. Phantom Creek Lake holds a sense of timelessness. Seasons pass and the landscape changes, yet the eerie calm persists. In autumn, fallen leaves gather along the shore, drifting across dark waters that absorb the fading light. In winter, ice forms jagged patterns, creating a mirrored surface where fog clings more tightly to the land. Spring brings sudden storms, and the streams feeding the lake rush with renewed energy, carrying the distant memory of floods that swept through the valley. Each season leaves its own mark, layering the environment with history, memory, and quiet unease. Travelers often find themselves drawn to the lake in search of its mystery. Kayakers who venture into the mist report seeing fleeting figures among the trees. Hikers tell of sudden chills and the feeling of footsteps on paths that show no evidence of recent travel. Some say that when they pause to look into the water, they see shapes moving beneath the surface, forms that do not belong, hinting at something unseen lingering just out of reach. Despite its unsettling reputation, the lake possesses undeniable beauty. Sunlight breaking through fog casts silver trails across the water, and the surrounding forest glows with soft hues of green and amber. Sunlight breaking through fog casts silver trails across the water, and the surrounding forest glows with soft hues of green and amber. The streams feeding the lake sparkle as they descend over rocks, creating a rhythm that contrasts with the stillness of the larger body of water. Sunlight breaking through fog casts silver trails across the water, and the surrounding forest glows with soft hues of green and amber. The streams feeding the lake sparkle as they descend over rocks, creating a rhythm that contrasts with the stillness of the larger body of water. This balance between serene natural beauty and subtle unease is what keeps Phantom Creek Lake so compelling, a place where curiosity and caution walk side by side. At night, the lake takes on an even more mysterious air. Moonlight glances across the surface, illuminating patches of mist that drift like phantoms. Shadows of trees and rocks stretch across the water, merging with the natural darkness to form shapes that play tricks on the eyes. The calls of nocturnal creatures mingle with soft sounds that cannot be identified, and the lake seems to hold its secrets closer in the absence of daylight. Some who camp near the shore describe hearing low murmurs echoing across the water, voices that are not their own, blending with the rustle of leaves and the gentle flow of the streams. The more one observes, the more the lake reveals its character. It is patient, watching those who come and go, offering fleeting glimpses of something beyond understanding. Phantom Creek Lake is not merely a place of water and trees, but a landscape where the past seems to linger, where memory and mystery coexist, and where the natural and the supernatural intertwine. It teaches visitors to look closely, to listen carefully, and to recognize that not all that is lost is gone, and not all that is seen can be fully explained. Dawn brings a transformation. The fog lifts, revealing the forest in soft morning light. The water calms, reflecting the sky and the surrounding trees with clarity. The voices fade, leaving only the gentle sound of flowing streams and the occasional rustle of wildlife. Yet even in daylight, the lake retains a subtle tension, a reminder of the stories it holds and the unseen presence that has always been part of its depths. Phantom Creek Lake continues to be a destination for those drawn to mystery, a place where beauty and unease coexist in perfect balance, and where every ripple on the surface carries a memory of what has come before. Ravenna S. Hollow Lake lies nestled within a dense stand of evergreens, their dark silhouettes forming a protective barrier around the calm waters. The lake appears serene at first glance, its surface smooth and reflective, capturing the muted colors of sky and forest alike. Yet beneath this tranquility, there is an energy that feels alive, as if the trees and water are aware of each visitor who approaches. During the day, sunlight filters through the branches, casting shifting patterns on the surface of the lake. The air carries a faint scent of pine and damp earth, and the only sounds are the gentle rustle of leaves and the distant call of birds. Hikers and explorers speak of a quiet that is different from ordinary silence, a weight in the air that both calms and unsettles, hinting at the mysteries hidden in the shadows. As dusk settles, the atmosphere changes. The calm waters begin to mirror not just the sky, but the darkening shapes of the surrounding forest. Shadows move across the surface, fleeting and indistinct, vanishing when approached. Those who linger near the lake at this time report hearing the sound of wings flapping, though no birds are in sight. Soft whispers travel through the trees, faint yet compelling, urging attention without revealing their source. The shoreline itself seems to shift with the light. Rocks and roots that appeared solid by day may appear as elongated forms at night. Some hikers have described feeling watched, a presence that mirrors their movements. The longer one remains, the more acute the awareness becomes, as though the lake itself is observing, cataloging each step and pause. Trees around Ravenna S. Hollow Lake are thick and imposing. Their trunks rise straight and tall, branches entwining overhead, to create a canopy that muffles sound and dims light. The shadows beneath them seem to ripple with movement, though the source is never clear. Even the wind behaves strangely here, whispering through the needles in patterns that suggest intention, carrying voices and sound that vanish when focus is applied. The lake reflects more than the forest. Under the moonlight, Shapes appear in the water that do not correspond to trees or rocks. Dark forms glide beneath the surface, moving deliberately yet silently. They are not fish, nor can they be explained by natural currents. Those who have seen them describe a sense of recognition, as if the shapes are aware of being watched and choose to reveal themselves in fragments. Visitors often speak of the treeline, where figures can stand silently before vanishing entirely. They appear human in outline, but impossibly still, like statues carved from shadow. Movement is minimal, almost imperceptible, yet it carries an unmistakable presence. Approaching these forms is said to be dangerous, as the lake seems to respond, intensifying the whispers and stirring the air with unseen motion. Mist occasionally rises from the surface, curling upward in thin ribbons that obscure sight and create an ethereal atmosphere. Within the fog, the water and trees blend into one continuous shadow, making it difficult to distinguish solid ground from reflection. It is in these moments that visitors report the strongest sensations of being observed, of footsteps that are not theirs, and of shapes that appear to mirror their own movements before slipping away. Even during the quiet hours, the lake feels alive with subtle motion. The surface can ripple without wind, sending concentric circles across the reflection of the sky. Occasionally, a shadow crosses these ripples, a fleeting silhouette that disappears before it can be fully seen. Hikers and campers describe the sensation as both mesmerizing and unsettling, drawing the eye while warning the mind that the lake does not conform to ordinary rules. Raven's Hollow Lake seems to exist in its own time. Moments stretch and contract unpredictably, and the rhythm of the natural world feels altered. Night deepens, and the trees seem to bend inward slightly, as if the forest itself leans toward the lake. Sounds are magnified and distorted, whispers carrying across the water in waves, sometimes forming patterns that suggest intent, though their meaning remains elusive. Visitors speak of cold air that follows along the shoreline, brushing past skin and chilling the bones. The temperature fluctuates unnaturally, dropping in one spot while remaining mild in another. Some report seeing shapes standing on the ice or along the edge, only to vanish when looked at directly. The combination of cold movement and whispers creates a sense of presence that is impossible to ignore. Even the daytime view is not without unease. Reflections in the lake seem to shift subtly, as if the water remembers shapes from the night before. Rocks appear differently positioned, shadows lengthen unnaturally, and the forest seems to close in with an almost conscious awareness. There's a quiet insistence that the lake holds more than water and reflection, a living memory that continues to echo the presence of what is past. Approaching the lake is a balance between fascination and caution. It draws explorers with its beauty, its calm surface, and the hypnotic rhythm of the forest surrounding it. Yet it warns them with subtle signs, an instinctive knowledge that not everything here is meant to be understood or touched. Those who linger too long report a sense of being part of the environment, absorbed into the rhythm of shadow and whisper, aware of the lake watching them as much as they observe it. By midnight, Ravenna's Hollow Lake becomes almost otherworldly. Moonlight glints off the water, creating silver paths that seem to shift with each step. Figures at the treeline may appear once more, standing motionless, then dissolve into the night. The forest exhales softly, carrying the sound of wings and whispers to any who remain awake. Every element of the cold, the mist, the shadowsa works together to create a landscape that is both beautiful and haunting, a place suspended between the ordinary and the unknown. Visitors leave the lake carrying its impressions long. After they have departed, the whispers echo in memory, the shadows linger in thought, and the sensation of being observed remains, subtle yet persistent. Ravenna's Hollow Lake does not demand belief, but it ensures that anyone who experiences it cannot forget the depth of its mystery, the quiet power of its presence, and the delicate tension that exists at the intersection of light, shadow, and the living forest that surrounds it is a place of delicate tension that exists at the intersection of light, shadow, and the living forest that surrounds it is a place of delicate tension Silent Mist Lake rests in a secluded valley where dense fog rises from the water each morning. And clings to the surrounding trees. The mist drifts across the lake in slow, curling waves, shrouding the shoreline in a soft, ethereal haze. Even in daylight, visibility is limited, and the world feels muted, distant, as if the lake exists in its own separate reality. Travelers who venture near the water speak of a quiet unease. Shapes sometimes appear in the fog, fleeting and indistinct. They flicker at the edges of vision, moving just out of reach, as if aware of observers but unwilling to be fully seen. Some have reported lights hovering above the surface, dim and wavering, vanishing the moment they are approached. The lake is known for its subtle hauntings. Visitors often feel the sensation of being followed along the shore. Footsteps echo behind them in the fog, yet when they turn, no one is there. The mist carries sound strangely, magnifying whispers and rustling leaves into something almost human, leaving a lingering tension that cannot be easily shaken. Silent Mist Lake holds an unusual stillness. The water reflects the sky and trees in near-perfect clarity, but the reflections are never quite right. Occasionally, glimpses of figures appear in the mirrored surface. Shadows that mimic the living yet move with an unnatural hesitation. Those who notice these reflections report a chill that seeps into their bones, an awareness that the lake remembers more than it should. At the edge of the forest surrounding the lake, fallen trees and moss-covered stones form natural barriers, guiding visitors toward the water while simultaneously isolating them. The fog amplifies this isolation, making the world feel both intimate and infinite. Each step on the damp earth echoes into the mist, reinforcing the sense of solitude. Yet the Lakia-esque presence feels immediate, almost sentient. Evenings at Silent Mist Lake are particularly haunting. The fog thickens, rolling across the surface in slow, deliberate motions. The occasional ripple hints at movement beneath the surface, Visitors speak of hearing faint cries or sighs carried across the water, subtle reminders of past events that linger in the Lakia-esque atmosphere. Some locals tell stories of travelers who vanish, drawn by the Lakia-esque mysterious presence. Their disappearances are unexplained, and the water seems to hold no trace of them. Others describe witnessing past tragedies replayed in almost imperceptible ways. The shimmer of a lost object, a fleeting shadow of someone who once stood there, or the echo of a voice carried by the mist. The lake does not act with malice, yet preserves memory, keeping fragments of the past alive in its fog. The surrounding forest is alive with sound and movement, yet it feels distant, filtered through the dense mist. Birds and small animals are seldom seen, their absence adding to the Lakia-esque silence. Trees arch over the water, their branches heavy with dew, forming natural corridors that guide explorers into the heart of the fog. Paths twist and vanish, leaving a sense that the lake can shape the journey as much as those who attempt it. Visitors describe the air near Silent Mist Lake as unusually cool and still. A sudden breeze may stir, moving the fog in waves that conceal or reveal the landscape in unpredictable patterns. Shadows shift with the mist, and shapes appear just long enough to spark curiosity or unease. Those who linger too long often speak of a pull toward the water, a subtle compulsion that urges them to look deeper, yet always maintains an air of elusiveness. At night, the lake transforms completely. Moonlight glances off the water, casting ghostly reflections and illuminating the fog in a silvery glow. Sound become exaggerated in the quiet night. Footsteps echoing across the water, leaves rustling as though moved by unseen hands, and the occasional ripple hinting at life beneath the still surface, vanishing into the mist before they can be fully observed. Silent Mist Lake is a place where reality feels pliable. The fog, the shadows, and the reflections all create an environment where perception is constantly challenged. The lake seems to watch, aware of every movement and every gaze, preserving the echoes of those who wander too close. Even in its calm, it carries a reminder that the natural world can hold memories, shapes, and sounds beyond the ordinary. Despite its quiet and haunting atmosphere, travelers continue to visit the lake. Some are drawn by the allure of its mysteries. Each person leaves with a story, a lingering sense of the Lakia's presence, and an understanding that Silent Mist Lake is more than water and fog. It is a living memory, an echo of past events, and a place where the boundary between the seen and the unseen is fragile, shifting, and unforgettable. Black Hollow Lake lies deep within a remote valley, its surface dark and still, reflecting the towering cliffs that surround it. The rock faces rise abruptly, jagged and unyielding, casting long shadows across the water as the sun moves through the sky. The lake appears serene, yet there is a quiet tension in the air, an almost imperceptible energy that lingers over the water. During the day, the cliffs reveal their harsh beauty. Rocks glint under sunlight, and patches of moss cling to precarious ledges. Visitors who hike along the rim often speak of sudden gusts of wind that seem to come from nowhere. The air carries the scent of damp earth and pine, grounding the mind while reminding travelers that the terrain is unforgiving and unpredictable. The lake itself has an unusual darkness, a depth that seems to absorb light rather than reflect it. Ripples sometimes form on the surface without wind or movement, small disturbances that fade as quickly as they appear. Some who have witnessed these ripples report a sense of being observed, a quiet awareness that they are not alone, even when no one else is in sight. As dusk falls, Black Hollow Lake transforms. Shadows stretch from the cliffs to the water, merging into shapes that shift and flicker with subtle movement. The stillness of the lake is broken only by faint noises from the surrounding forest, rustling leaves, and distant calls of wildlife, as if the valley itself remembers every step taken along its edges. Visitors often speak of a pull toward the lake, an inexplicable curiosity that draws them closer to the water. Those who venture near the shore report the sensation of unseen currents, the faint pressure of something beneath, stirring silently. The effect is subtle but unmistakable, creating a mixture of fascination and caution. The cliffs above the lake are not forgiving. Sudden rock slides or claim lives, reminding all who approach of the lake's danger. The sharp edges of fallen stones and the steep inclines make navigation treacherous. Yet the lake continues to attract those seeking its mysterious allure. The combination of natural beauty and hidden peril gives Black Hollow Lake a presence both captivating and solemn. At night, the lake takes on an almost otherworldly quality. The surface reflects the moonlight in fragmented patterns, disturbed by ripples that have no visible cause. Shadows move along the water in unnatural ways, fleeting figures that vanish when approached. Some campers report hearing soft splashes in the darkness, the sound of water disturbed by something beneath, yet, when investigated, no trace of movement could be found. The surrounding forest adds to the lake's atmosphere. Trees grow densely along the cliffs, their branches creating intricate patterns against the sky. Wind moves through the canopy unpredictably, carrying with it distant whispers and the faint scent of wet foliage. The forest feels alive in its own way, responding to the presence of visitors, and enhancing the sensation that the lake is a place apart, existing in its own quiet rhythm. Stories passed among locals describe travelers who have come too close to the lake at night and felt an invisible force guiding them along the shoreline. Some claim to have seen shadowy figures just beneath the water, indistinct but undeniably present. The combination of natural danger, mysterious movement, and unexplained sensations creates an experience that is at once thrilling and humbling. Even during calm mornings, Black Hollow Lake retains its aura of mystery. The cliffs catch the first light of dawn, illuminating the jagged surfaces and casting long reflections across the water. Mist rises from the lake in gentle swirls, softening the sharp edges of the landscape. The interplay of light and shadow transforms the valley, creating a fleeting moment of quiet beauty that is almost hypnotic. Visitors leave Black Hollow Lake with a sense of reverence. The combination of natural splendor, subtle paranormal phenomena, and the knowledge of hidden dangers leaves a lasting impression. The lake is a place where curiosity meets caution, where the eye and mind are drawn to details both seen and imagined, and where every visit carries the weight of the unknown. Black Hollow Lake endures as a testament to the power of nature and the allure of mystery. Its dark waters, towering cliffs, and shifting shadows create an experience that is unforgettable. Those who witness its quiet disturbances, its subtle ripples, and the gentle pull toward the water understand that some places are meant to inspire awe and respect, leaving a lingering impression long after the journey ends. Glimmering Hollow Lake lies tucked away in a secluded valley, its surface reflecting the sky and surrounding forest with an almost unnatural clarity. During the day, the water shimmers like glass, framed by tall trees whose branches sway gently in the wind. Sunlight dances across the ripples, creating fleeting patterns that seem to move with a life of their own. The lake appears serene and inviting, drawing hikers and nature lovers to its quiet shores. Yet as the sun dips below the horizon, glimmering Hollow Lake transforms. Shadows lengthen across the water, and the forest grows dense and still. A chill creeps along the shoreline, and the air seems heavier, carrying the faintest sounds that do not belong to the natural world. Campers often describe a sense of being watched, a quiet awareness that follows each step along the forest paths and lake edge. As darkness settles, lights begin to appear above the water. They hover and drift, soft and ethereal, often forming shapes that resemble human figures. These apparitions do not follow a predictable pattern, sometimes vanish in the moment they are approached, leaving only the shimmering reflection on the water behind. Observers often describe an unexplainable curiosity mixed with apprehension, compelled to watch even as their instincts urge caution. Footsteps echo along the shore, startling in the quiet of night. Campers report feeling the presence of someone moving nearby, yet when they turn, the sand and leaves show no disturbance. Lanterns appear at the water's edge, floating gently as if carried by unseen hands. They drift closer, illuminating the darkness with a warm glow, only to vanish suddenly, leaving the observer in the same shadowed stillness as before. The Lakia-esque surface reflects more than the forest and sky. On certain nights, shapes appear in the water that do not correspond to anything present. Silhouettes of figures, distorted and fleeting, move beneath the surface or glide across it, vanishing when approached. The effect is subtle yet profound, giving the impression that glimmering Hollow Lake contains layers of reality not visible in daylight. Even during the quiet hours, the surrounding forest seems alive. Trees creak with the weight of night air, and the gentle rustle of leaves blends with sounds that cannot be explained. Wind moves in unusual patterns, carrying whispers or faint echoes that vanish when investigated. Those who spend the night near the lake often describe a mixture of awe and unease, drawn to the beauty, while sensing an invisible presence in the shadows. The natural world at Glimmering Hollow Lake is at once familiar and uncanny. Birds settle in their roosts, frogs call from the reeds, and the occasional splash of fish punctuates the stillness. Yet these natural sounds are framed by moments of subtle disturbance, reminders that the lake is more than a simple body of water. The interplay between serenity and strangeness captivates those who linger, creating an experience that lingers in memory long after leaving the shore. Visitors during dawn witness a transformation. Mist rises from the water, curling around tree trunks and stones, softening the landscape with a pale haze. Sunlight filters through the fog, creating shafts of light that illuminate the rippling surface. The mysterious lights of night vanish, leaving only the serene beauty of the lake and the surrounding forest. Even in this calm, there is a sense that the night has left a subtle mark, that the lake carries an echo of what occurred under the darkness. Seasons shape the character of Glimmering Hollow Lake. Spring brings vibrant greens and the bloom of wildflowers, with water rushing gently from connecting streams. Summer intensifies the forest canopy, creating cool shadows that contrast with the shimmering water. Autumn paints the trees in deep reds and golds, and fallen leaves drift across the lake, adding texture to the reflections. In winter, frost and ice transform the surface, creating crystalline patterns that shimmer beneath pale light. Each season emphasizes both the beauty and mysterious quality of the lake, inviting repeated exploration. The lake has a reputation that extends beyond the immediate forest. Locals speak of its enigmatic charm and the unusual phenomena witnessed by those who venture to its shores. Some interpret the lights and figures as spirits or echoes of past visitors, while others see them as manifestations of the Lakia's unique energy. Regardless of interpretation, Glimmering Hollow Lake continues to draw those fascinated by the interplay of nature and the unexplained. Time spent at the lake encourages observation and reflection. Every ripple, every movement of light, and every shadow along the water's edge contributes to an ongoing story that unfolds differently for each visitor. There's a rhythm to the place, a cadence of stillness and subtle activity that captures attention and imagination. Those who listen closely may hear the gentle lapping of water, the distant rustle of leaves, and the faintest echoes of the night, all blending into a symphony of quiet mystery. Night returns to the lake with new visitors. Lanterns may appear, floating above the water. Footsteps echo in the shadows, and figures glide along the edges in the fog. The phenomenon is never the same twice, a reminder of the Lakia's ever-changing presence. Each encounter leaves a lasting impression, a mixture of wonder, curiosity, and a recognition that Glimmering Hollow Lake is a place where the natural and the inexplicable coexist. By dawn, the lights fade and the forest awakens. The lake reflects the sky and surrounding trees with calm clarity once more. The ephemeral phenomena of night are gone, yet the experience remains vivid, a memory of a place where beauty and mystery intertwine. Glimmering Hollow Lake continues to captivate and intrigue, offering an invitation to those willing to explore its tranquil surface and the enigmatic world that lies just beyond sight. Deathcap Lake rests in a remote valley, its waters dark and still, reflecting the jagged cliffs that rise sharply on all sides. The lake earned its ominous name from a series of mysterious deaths that occurred in the 1800s, events that have become part of local legend. The stories linger in the air, carried by the wind and echoed in the whispers of those who dare to visit. Travelers often speak of profound stillness as they approach the shoreline. The air feels heavier here, as if pressing down on those who enter the valley. Footsteps crunching in the gravel seem amplified, and even the faintest sound echoes unnaturally across the water. Some report sudden chills that run along the spine, moments when the temperature drops inexplicably despite the weather. During daylight, Deathcap Lake has a stark beauty. Its surface reflects the surrounding cliffs and dense pine forests in mirror-like perfection. Rocks jet out of the water, and shallow areas extend gently from the shore. Yet even under the sun, the lake carries a sense of unease. Shadows appear to shift across the water without cause, and small ripples form in places untouched by wind or wildlife. As evening falls, the lake takes on a more unsettling character. Ghostly figures are sometimes seen perched upon rocks, sitting silently, staring across the water. Others appear standing in the shallow edges, their outlines faint and wavering, almost blending with the mist that rises from the lake. When approached, these shapes vanish without trace, leaving only the frozen ripples of disturbed water. Screams are reported by travelers at unpredictable intervals, echoing across the valley with no identifiable source. They are distant at first, blending with the wind, and then intensify, lingering in the air before fading. The sound is unnerving, resonating deep within the chest, a reminder of the lake's dark history and the stories that refuse to be forgotten. The cliffs surrounding Deathcap Lake add to the oppressive atmosphere. Their steep faces reflect the fading light of dusk, and shadows stretch across the water, forming patterns that seem almost intentional. Every rock and crevice becomes a point of tension, a potential hiding place for figures just beyond perception. The forest above the cliffs rustles, as though aware, the sound of moving leaves whispering alongside the wind. Mist frequently rolls across the surface of the lake, particularly in the early morning and late evening. It forms a thin, undulating curtain, obscuring shapes and making the water appear infinite. Within the fog, figures become more pronounced, yet remain impossible to approach. Travelers have described the sensation of being observed from multiple directions. The lake and surrounding forest acting together to create a presence that is difficult to define yet impossible to ignore. Even the wildlife seems to sense the Lakia's power. Birds avoid the immediate shoreline, leaving only the distant call of crows or ravens that circle overhead. Small animals remain hidden in the dense underbrush, and the usual sounds of a forest near water are muted. The absence of movement amplifies perception of the lake as a place apart, timeless, and deeply aware. Shadows play across the water in ways that defy ordinary logic. Dark shapes glide beneath the surface, shifting just enough to suggest form, yet never breaking the smoothness of the lake. Some have reported seeing human-like silhouettes submerge for brief moments, vanishing before any closer inspection is possible. These glimpses reinforce the sense that the lake holds memories, not just reflections. The air carries more than chill, it carries history. Each breeze seems to carry fragments of the past, faint whispers of the lost and those who perished near the water. Even the simplest gestures, a step on a rock or a breath drawn too quickly, are amplified by the valley. Travelers leave with a sensation that the lake has recorded their presence, a silent observer marking each motion and hesitation. Nightfall transforms Deathcap Lake into a realm of shadow and reflection. Moonlight glints off the water, but it is never enough to fully illuminate the surface. Figures at the edge of perception grow more distinct, yet disappear when examined directly. Screams and whispers intensify, carrying across the still water, joining the subtle sound of the wind in the trees and the occasional crash of a distant rockfall. The lake seems to have its own rhythm, independent of the natural world. Time behaves strangely here. Minutes can stretch into hours, and travelers report a sense of disorientation that intensifies with darkness. Even familiar paths along the shoreline appear altered, footprints in the snow or mud shifting or disappearing entirely. The environment conspires to remind visitors that Deathcap Lake is a place apart, not fully governed by ordinary rules. Those who linger too long describe sensations that defy explanation. Shadows that seem distant suddenly move with intent. Reflections ripple with unseen disturbance, and the air thickens with presence. Yet amid the fear, there is a strange beauty. The Lakia's surface glimmers with pale light, the cliffs rise like silent sentinels, and the mist weaves an intricate dance across water and rock. Deathcap Lake does not offer closure or certainty. It demands awareness, patience, and respect. Every visitor leaves with a sense of having walked through a space that is alive with memory, a place where the past lingers, shaping perception and leaving traces long after departure. The lake is both a memorial and a mystery, a convergence of nature, history, and the unknown. Even when the valley falls silent and the mist fades under the rising sun, Deathcap Lake remains. Its waters reflect a world that is both familiar and otherworldly, a mirror for those willing to look deeply, and a reminder that some places exist beyond explanation, holding the echoes of lives lost and stories never fully told. Darkwater Lake stretches across a secluded valley, its depths dark and seemingly endless. The water is cold and still, reflecting the sky and surrounding forest in a mirror that feels slightly distorted, as if reality itself bends along the edges. The shoreline is rugged, framed by thick trees and jagged rocks that rise sharply from the water, casting shadows that linger long after the sun has passed beyond the horizon. Travelers who approach the lake often describe a sense of unease that is difficult to place. Shapes appear on the water's surface, fleeting and indistinct, moving independently of the wind or any ripple. When observers draw closer, the shapes vanish without explanation, leaving only the calm reflection of the surrounding forest and sky. There is a subtle tension, as though the lake notices those who watch it and measures their attention carefully. Darkwater Lake is known for its eerie soundscape. Even in daylight, the forest feels hushed, as though the lake absorbs noise and leaves only a profound silence. On quieter days, hikers and visitors have reported faint voices carried across the water, echoing without source. The whispers are fleeting and impossible to trace, as though fragments of the past are replaying themselves across the surface. Mist frequently rises from the lake, rolling across the water in dense, curling waves. The fog softens the outlines of trees and rocks, creating an environment where perception is unreliable. Within this mist, shadowy figures have been seen moving slowly along the shoreline or standing at the water's edge. They vanish when approached, leaving only the impression of movement in the air and a subtle chill that lingers long after they are gone. The lake is deceptively calm. Beneath its surface, currents move with a silent persistence, carrying reflections that shift unnaturally. Visitors often speak of glimpsing forms beneath the water, shapes that resemble human figures but move with an inhuman fluidity. These glimpses are fleeting, and attempts to locate them often prove futile, yet they leave a lasting impression that the lake holds secrets well beyond the ordinary. Even in the fading light of dusk, Darkwater Lake takes on an otherworldly presence. The water glows dimly with reflected sky, and shadows lengthen across the shoreline, merging with the forest in ways that seem impossible. Rocks that appear solid at first glance seem to shift slightly when viewed from different angles, and tree branches arch over the water in unusual formations that invite scrutiny and hesitation. At night, the atmosphere becomes heavier, and the Lakia-esque mysteries become more pronounced. The surface reflects moonlight, creating silver patterns that ripple with an almost conscious rhythm. Visitors often hear footsteps behind them or the soft sound of movement in the underbrush, yet when they turn, there is nothing to be seen. Hikers report feeling an unseen presence at their side, guiding or observing them in silence. Darkwater Lake also seems to preserve memory. Some claim to see glimpses of events that occurred long ago, replayed subtly across the water. A flicker of light may indicate a figure walking the shore, or a ripple may suggest something unseen moving beneath the surface. The experiences are brief and ambiguous, but they give a sense that the lake holds fragments of lives that once brushed against its edges, replaying them for those who venture too close. The surrounding forest adds to the sense of isolation. Trees grow densely along the shoreline, their branches interweaving to form natural corridors that lead deeper into the mist. Leaves rustle with a faint whisper, echoing in the quiet air, while distant wildlife is seldom seen or heard. The effect is one of solitude, where the only companions are the shadows, the reflections, and the subtle sensations that suggest the lake is aware of every step. Visitors who linger near the lake often describe an almost magnetic pull toward the water. The reflections, the shapes, and the quiet whispers all combine to create a feeling that the lake is not merely a body of water, but a presence in its own right. Some feel drawn to peer beneath the surface, sensing that the unseen depths are watching as intently as the observer. The experience can be both captivating and unnerving, leaving a lingering impression long after leaving the shoreline. Darkwater Lake is a place of contrasts, both beautiful and foreboding. The surrounding forest, the jagged rocks, and the still waters create a picturesque landscape that is alluring during the day. Yet the same scenery at dusk or under the cover of mist reveals the Lakia-esque unsettling character, a reminder that what is calm on the surface may conceal depths beyond comprehension. Despite the quiet menace, travelers continue to visit the lake. Its mysteries, the unusual reflections, the fleeting shapes in the mist, and the faint voices all draw curiosity and fascination. Each visitor leaves with an experience unique to them, carrying the subtle impression that Darkwater Lake is more than water and forest. It is a living memory, an enigmatic presence, and a reminder that some places are defined as much by what remains unseen as by what is visible. Darkwater Lake endures, patient and unchanging. The water reflects the sky, the shadows, and the people who come and go. Yet the depths hold secrets that resist understanding. For those who approach its shoreline, the lake offers both beauty and unease, a quiet tension that lingers in the mind, and the knowledge that some mysteries are meant to be observed, but never fully solved. Frostvale Lake rests in a secluded valley, surrounded by jagged, snow-capped peaks that rise sharply into the sky. During the day, the sunlight glints off icy ridges and illuminates the frozen edges of the lake. The water appears dark and still, reflecting the towering mountains with almost perfect clarity, as if holding a mirror to the world above. Even in daylight, the air carries a crisp chill that seeps into clothing and skin. The scent of pine and frost hangs in the atmosphere, blending with the subtle tang of snow and rock. Travelers who approach the lake feel a quiet tension, as though the landscape itself is aware of their presence. Every step along the snowy shoreline is measured, every sound amplified in the stillness of the valley. As evening falls, Frostvale Lake begins to transform. Mist rises from the surface, curling in delicate tendrils that drift across the water and settle in the spaces between trees and cliffs. The mist takes on shapes that seem to mimic forms from the past, evoking vague outlines of figures moving slowly along the shoreline. Some say they resemble villagers long forgotten, lingering in a place where time feels suspended. The lake is known for its subtle but persistent chill. Cold gusts sweep down from the surrounding peaks, carry with them the faint rustle of leaves and snow disturbed in the silent forest. Campers and hikers often report feeling watched, a sensation that persists even when no one else is in sight. Shadows shift at the corners of vision, vanishing when looked at directly, yet leaving behind an undeniable impression. Reflections on the lake change with the fading light. Ripples appear without wind, moving across the surface in patterns that are impossible to explain. At times, the water glimmers with a faint hint of movement beneath, as if something stirs silently in the depths. Visitors are drawn to the shore, fascinated by the interplay of mist, light, and shadow. Yet a quiet caution tempers their curiosity. The surrounding peaks enhance the lake's mysterious atmosphere. Winds carry distant sounds of shifting ice or falling snow, adding to the sense that the environment itself is alive. Every rock face and snow-laden tree seems to hold a memory, a fragment of moments long past, preserved in the cold and stillness. Nightfall deepens the enchantment of Frostvale Lake. The mist thickens, moving slowly across the water in gentle waves. Shapes form and dissolve, sometimes appearing to mirror the figures of travelers who once walked the shores. The air carries whispers, soft and fleeting, seeming to speak from nowhere and everywhere at once. The quiet is broken only by the occasional rustle of branches or the distant fall of ice from the cliffs. The experience of visiting the lake is subtle yet profound. There is no overt danger, no sudden threat, but the sensations are undeniable. The cold presses against the skin, the whispers linger in the mind, and the feeling of being observed never fully disappears. Visitors leave with a sense of having glimpsed something beyond the ordinary, a quiet reminder of the mysteries that exist in hidden places. In the early hours before dawn, the lake changes once more. Mist curls around the edges, reflecting the faint light of stars and the rising moon. The water's surface is smooth and reflective, interrupted only by small, unexplained ripples. Shapes seem to drift beneath the surface, barely visible, suggesting the presence of life or memory hidden in the depths. The stillness of the night emphasizes the delicate tension between observation and imagination. Even when the sun rises and the valley awakens, Frostvale Lake retains an air of quiet reverence. Snow melts slowly along the shore, revealing jagged rocks and frozen streams. Wildlife cautiously approaches the edges of the water, but never lingers too long. Travelers carry with them the lingering impression of night, of mist and whispers, of shapes that exist in the periphery of sight, and the feeling of a presence just beyond reach. Frostvale Lake is more than a destination. It is an experience. Its frozen peaks, rising cliffs, and reflective waters create a world suspended between reality and something unspoken. Visitors are reminded that nature can be beautiful and serene while holding mysteries that defy explanation. The lake endures as a silent guardian of memory, a place where the cold, the mist, and the unseen converge, leaving all who visit with a sense of awe and quiet curiosity. The legacy of Frostvale Lake is subtle but enduring. Those who stand on its shore sense a connection to the past, to forgotten moments and quiet spirits preserved in the snow, mist, and water. The lake invites exploration, contemplation, and reflection, offering a glimpse into a world where beauty and mystery coexist, where the ordinary meets the extraordinary, and where the night carries stories that linger long after the first light of day touches the peaks. Silent Echo Lake rests in a secluded valley, surrounded by dense forests that seem to absorb and carry sound in unusual ways. Its waters lie dark and still, reflecting the trees and sky with a clarity that is almost unnerving. Travelers who approach the lake often comment on the way voices seem to travel across the surface, echoing from one shore to another, as if the lake itself is speaking. During daylight, the lake appears serene. Sunlight glints off rippling water, and gentle breezes sway the surrounding pines. Birds call and insects hum, blending into the natural soundtrack of the forest. Yet even in the brightness of day, there's a subtle sense that Silent Echo Lake is aware of those who wander near it. Shadows shift along the water and through the trees, moving with a quiet intelligence that unsettles those paying attention. Abandoned cabins line portions of the shore. They're weathered with liens under years of neglect, and broken windows offer glimpses into empty interiors. Travelers report lights flickering within, small glows that appear and vanish without explanation. The combination of movement and light creates a sense of life in what is otherwise a desolate scene. Campers often describe hearing footsteps on the boards or outside along the shore, only to find the cabins empty when investigated. As the sun sets, the lake transforms. Twilight casts long shadows across the water, and the forest takes on almost tangible thickness. Sounds stretch and distort, voices echoing across distances far greater than possible. Some hear faint laughter or murmurs of conversation that do not belong to anyone present. The echoes seem to have a life of their own, carried by the wind and water, lingering long after the original sound should have faded. Figures are sometimes seen wading in shallow water near the edges of the lake. They move slowly and deliberately, often appearing just out of reach. When approached, they vanish as though swallowed by the water itself. Observers describe a tension between curiosity and apprehension, drawn to watch while instinct urges retreat. The sight leaves a lasting impression, a reminder of the strange and unexplainable phenomena that define the lake. At night, Silent Echo Lake becomes even more enigmatic. The surface reflects the moon and stars, broken only by occasional ripples from unseen movements. Shadows drift across the shoreline, sometimes forming shapes reminiscent of human figures. Lights continue to flicker in the cabins, casting eerie glows onto the water. These lights do not follow a pattern, appearing in different windows or along different walls, as if guided by unseen forces. The air carries subtle sounds that are difficult to identify. Leaves rustle, water laps gently, and distant calls echo through the trees. Whispers and echoes seem to respond to movement or thought. Travelers often pause to listen, drawn in by the combination of beauty and mystery, aware that the Lakia-esque atmosphere is unlike anywhere else. Reflections on the water add another layer of intrigue. Occasionally, forms appear in the surface that do not correspond with anything visible. Shapes glide beneath the water or hover near the surface before fading. The effect is both captivating and unsettling, creating an impression that the lake is a mirror not only of the surroundings but of something deeper, unseen, and alive. Seasons alter the character of the lake while maintaining its enigmatic presence. In spring, streams feed the lake with clear, rushing water, and wildflowers bloom along the shores. Summer brings thick foliage and cool, shaded paths that invite exploration. Autumn paints the forest in deep reds and golds, and fallen leaves drift across the lake, adding texture to the reflections. Visitors to Silent Echo Lake experience a mixture of fascination and unease. Every rustle, ripple, and flicker of light contributes to the sense that the lake is alive in ways beyond understanding. Some feel a presence guiding or observing them, a subtle awareness that leaves them alert to every movement. Others describe moments of calm wonder, captivated by the beauty, while aware of the underlying strangeness. Each encounter is unique, a personal journey into the intersection of nature and mystery. By dawn, the lake shifts once more. The mist rises from the surface, curling through the trees and softening edges. Lights vanish from the cabins, and echoes fade with the first breeze of morning. Water ripples gently with the movements of wildlife, and the forest awakens to another day. Despite the return of normalcy, the impressions of the night linger, a reminder that Silent Echo Lake holds secrets that are never fully revealed. The lake continues to captivate those who seek it. Its ability to carry sound, reflect unexpected forms, and present fleeting glimpses of figures makes it a place of constant fascination. The balance of beauty and subtle unease invites exploration while commanding respect. Silent Echo Lake is a reminder of the quiet power of nature and the mysteries that can exist just beneath the surface, waiting for those who are willing to notice. Visitors leave with stories, impressions, and memories that linger long after departing. The echoes of the lake stay with them, a gentle reminder of the strange and captivating presence that defines a secluded and extraordinary place, where the natural world and the unexplained coexist, offering an experience that is at once beautiful, mysterious, and unforgettable. Shimmering Ice Lake lies high in a secluded valley. Its surface stretches like a pale mirror, reflecting the sky with a clarity that feels almost unnatural. The surrounding peaks and trees are captured perfectly in the ice, yet the reflection is never quite what it seems. Shadows shift beneath the surface, hinting at movements that defy explanation. During daylight, the lake appears serene. The frozen surface sparkles with frost, and the sun glints off ice ridges, creating patterns that shift as the day passes. Snow drifts curl against the shoreline, softening the edges of rocks and fallen trees. The air is crisp and clear, carrying the scent of cold and pine, and every sound echoes with sharp, unnatural clarity. Footsteps in the snow can be heard from far away, yet they sometimes seem to vanish as if absorbed into the landscape. As evening approaches, the atmosphere around Shimmering Ice Lake becomes heavier. Twilight casts long shadows across the ice, and the reflection of the sky takes on a pale, haunting glow. Figures are said to glide beneath the ice, dark forms moving slowly, deliberately, yet never breaking the frozen surface. Hikers have reported seeing these shapes as fleeting silhouettes, moving with a grace that feels both mesmerizing and unsettling. Footprints in the snow near the lake behave strangely. Paths that appear familiar at first glance may shift, leading nowhere or curving impossibly back on themselves. Some visitors describe stepping into a trail, only to find it extended beyond reason or vanishing entirely. The effect creates a sense of disorientation, as though the landscape itself is subtly alive, guiding those who wander too close to the ice. The air around the lake carries a quiet pressure. A cold wind sweeps across the frozen surface, whispering through the surrounding evergreens, and sometimes stirring ripples in the snow that seem deliberate. Travelers report a sensation of being observed, a presence that follows without revealing itself. Even when alone, the valley feels alive, each movement accompanied by subtle shifts in shadow and sound. Mist occasionally rises from cracks in the ice, curling like smoke above the frozen lake. Within this haze, the figures beneath the ice appear more distinct, their movements slow and deliberate. The shapes are never fully clear, blending with reflections and shadows. Approaching them is said to create a pull, a sensation that the lake itself draws the observer toward its center, subtle at first and growing stronger the longer one remains. Night brings a deeper intensity. The moon casts pale light across the ice, creating silver paths that stretch toward the far shoreline. Figures beneath the surface glide in and out of visibility, their forms distorted by the thickness of the ice and the subtle undulations of the frozen water. Whispers drift through the wind, faint at first, carrying across the ice and mingling with the soft crunch of snow underfoot. The surrounding forest adds to the eerie stillness. Evergreens rise tall and imposing, their branches heavy with frost, creating a partial canopy that dims moonlight and muffles sound. Shadows weave through the trees, forming patterns that seem intentional, yet remain impossible to interpret fully. Even the wildlife acts strangely here, avoiding the immediate shoreline and leaving the area unnaturally quiet. Travelers describe a sensation of time bending near the lake. Moments stretch and compress. Shadows shift unpredictably. Familiar paths can appear altered. The frozen surface reflects the night sky perfectly. Yet the reflected stars seem to shimmer and move independently, as if aware of the presence standing above them. The combination of reflection, shadow, and movement creates an atmosphere that is both beautiful and haunting. Footsteps can echo across the ice, yet footprints in the snow sometimes do not match the steps that created them. Trails may curve impossibly or disappear entirely, reinforcing the sense that the lake is subtly alive, aware, and capable of interacting with those who linger. Hikers report that lingering too long can be dangerous, as the subtle pull of the ice grows stronger, coaxing attention and focus toward the lake itself. The experience of shimmering ice lake is one of constant tension and fascination. The frozen surface holds hidden depths, both literal and perceptual. Shadows, reflections, and shapes beneath the ice combine to create a landscape that is constantly shifting. Even brief glimpses of movement beneath the ice leave lasting impressions, a reminder of the Lakia's subtle yet persistent presence. Mist thickens the edge of the lake during the late hours, curling over the ice and softening the distinction between water, shadow, and sky. Within this fog, the figures beneath the surface appear closer, more tangible, yet vanish when approached. The air grows colder, sharper, carrying a sensation that is almost magnetic, urging attention toward the lake's center. The silence is deep, yet alive with faint echoes that hint at movement, awareness, and presence. As night deepens, the ice seems to shimmer with its own light. Subtle cracks and ridges catch the moon, creating patterns that shift as though alive. Shapes beneath the surface glide gracefully, never breaking the frozen mirror. And the shadows around the shoreline stretch and bend, forming fleeting figures that vanish upon closer observation. The combination of moonlight, ice, and shadow produces an atmosphere both hypnotic and unnerving. Shimmering Ice Lake is timeless. It exists apart from ordinary perception, a place where reflection, shadow, and unseen presence combine. Visitors leave with a sensation of having experienced a landscape that is alive, aware, and subtly interactive. Footprints, whispers, and shadows remain in memory, echoing the subtle power of a frozen world that is both beautiful and haunting. The lake does not threaten, yet it insists upon attention, leaving impressions that linger long after departure. Footprints, whispers, and shadows remain in memory, echoing. The subtle power of a frozen world that is both beautiful and haunting. Even as dawn approaches and the frost melts slightly beneath the rising sun, the ice continues to reflect the sky, yet the forms beneath remain elusive, hinting at movements too deliberate to be random. Shimmering Ice Lake is a place of mystery and fascination, a frozen realm that captivates and unsettles in equal measure, leaving every traveler aware that some landscapes exist beyond full understanding. Suspended between reflection and reality, misty Hollow Lake rests in a secluded valley, its surface often shrouded in thick, rolling fog. The mist drifts across the water, curling around trees and rocks along the shoreline, creating an ever-shifting landscape where edges blur and shapes appear only to vanish moments later. Even during daylight, the fog softens colors and sounds, giving the area an ethereal, almost otherworldly quality. Travelers approaching the lake often speak of an immediate unease. Shadows seem to move within the mist, forming shapes that sometimes resemble human figures. These forms appear at the periphery of vision, flickering and retreating when observed directly. The fleeting glimpses are enough to stir curiosity and tension, as if the lake itself is aware of every step taken along its shores. Visitors report a variety of strange sensations while near Misty Hollow Lake. Some hear whispers in languages unknown, carried on the wind and fading as quickly as they appear. Others feel cold brushes against their arms or shoulders, as though unseen hands trace their path. These experiences leave a lingering chill, both physical and psychological, that clings long after leaving the water. The lake is deceptively calm. Its surface reflects a fog and trees, creating near-perfect mirrored images. Yet the reflections often behave strangely. Ripples appear without wind, and at times, figures can be seen in the reflection that do not match any person present. The effect is subtle but undeniable, adding to the growing sense that Misty Hollow Lake exists on a threshold between the known and the unknown. The surrounding forest deepens the atmosphere. Trees grow densely along the shoreline, their branches intertwined to form natural arches over the water. The fog winds through these corridors, softening sounds and distorting movement. Leaves rustle in ways that mimic footsteps, and the occasional distant cry of an animal is transformed into something almost human. The environment feels alive, watching and responsive to the presence of visitors. Evenings at Misty Hollow Lake are particularly unsettling. As the sun sinks behind distant hills, shadows lengthen and the fog thickens, whether natural or otherwise, and the water seems to hold a subtle energy, as if the lake remembers events long past. The atmosphere is quiet but charged, carrying the weight of countless stories and unexplained occurrences. Some visitors speak of feeling a pull toward the water, an almost magnetic attraction that draws attention to the mist-covered surface. Shadows within the fog may seem to reach or beckon, while the whispers grow clearer yet remain unintelligible. The combination of visual and sensory phenomena is subtle but persistent, creating a tension that is impossible to ignore. The lake has a history of sudden fogs that appear without warning, obscuring paths and disorienting those nearby. Hikers and travelers have described losing sight of familiar landmarks, only to find themselves guided back by instinct or intuition. In some cases, these experiences are accompanied by fleeting glimpses of figures or shapes that vanish as quickly as they are noticed, leaving only the memory of movement within the mist. Nightfall transforms Misty Hollow Lake completely. The water takes on a dark, reflective sheen, mirroring the moon and stars while blending seamlessly with the surrounding fog. Sounds carry in unusual ways, footsteps echoing unnaturally, and whispers seem to travel farther than the distance would allow. Shadows coalesce into forms that are briefly tangible, only to dissolve when approached. The interplay between visibility and obscurity heightens the sense that the lake exists on the edge of perception. Despite its eerie atmosphere, the lake draws visitors who are captivated by its mysteries. Photographers, hikers, and curious travelers are all drawn to the interplay of mist, shadow, and water. Each person experiences the lake differently, noticing different shapes, hearing different sounds, and leaving with impressions unique to their encounter. The lake is patient, observing without interference, and its presence is felt long after leaving its shores. Misty Hollow Lake is a place where reality feels malleable. The fog, reflection, and shadows combine to create a landscape that is constantly shifting and unpredictable. Visitors quickly realize that the lake is not simply a body of water, but a living environment that responds subtly to attention and movement. Even the most cautious observers find themselves questioning what is real and what exists only within the mist. The lake's power lies not in violence or overt threat, but in its subtle manipulation of perception. Shadows that move independently, whispers that drift through the fog, and fleeting touches that seem to belong to no one create an experience both captivating and unsettling. Misty Hollow Lake preserves fragments of memory and echoes of the past, replaying them in quiet, haunting ways that draw attention and demand respect. Those who spend time at Misty Hollow Lake often leave with a sense of awe and unease intertwined. The combination of natural beauty, mysterious phenomena, and sensory anomalies makes the lake unforgettable. It is a place where the boundaries between reality and illusion are thin, where the fog conceals and reveals in equal measure, and where visitors are reminded that some landscapes are defined not only by what is seen, but by what is felt. Misty Hollow Lake endures, shrouded in fog, patient and unchanging. For those who approach its shores, the lake offers an experience that is immersive, enigmatic, and unforgettable, a place where mystery is woven into every ripple, every shadow, and every breath of fog. A place where mystery is woven into every ripple, every shadow, and every breath of fog. Ravenwood Lake lies deep within a forest of twisted evergreens, their gnarled branches bending toward the water as if in silent vigil. During the day, sunlight filters through the canopy, casting dappled patterns on the Lackia's surface. The water reflects the dark shapes of the trees and the distant mountains, creating an illusion of depth and shadow that seems to shift with every movement. The air is heavy with the scent of pine and damp earth, and the quiet is almost absolute. Birds call occasionally, and the rustle of small creatures moves through the underbrush. Yet even these sounds feel subdued, as if the forest itself is holding its breath. Travelers often pause at the shoreline, captivated by the serene beauty, unaware of the subtle changes that begin as daylight fades. As dusk approaches, Ravenwood Lake takes on a different character. Shadows lengthen and twist across the surface, merging with the reflections of trees to create shapes that are difficult to distinguish. Campers have reported seeing small lights floating above the water, moving against the wind as if guided by an unseen force. These lights are faint but persistent, drifting slowly and disappearing when approached, leaving behind a feeling of quiet unease. The lake surroundings seem to listen and respond to every movement. A gentle breeze may stir suddenly, or the water may ripple without explanation. Hikers walking along the narrow paths report hearing soft cries carried across the lake, faint and distant, yet unmistakably human in tone. The source is never visible, and the sound fades as quickly as it appears, leaving only the echo of the moment and a lingering sense of curiosity. Night deepens the mystery of Ravenwood Lake. Moonlight glints off the water in fragmented patterns, highlighting the irregular shapes of the shoreline and the twisted forms of the evergreens. Mist rises from the lake, curling and drifting across the surface. Visitors describe a sensation of being watched, a subtle awareness that persists even when the area is empty. Shadows move at the edges of vision, disappearing when turned toward directly. The combination of dim light, mist, and reflections creates an atmosphere of quiet tension, as if the lake itself is aware of every step taken along its edges. The lake responds in small but unmistakable ways. Ripples appear without wind, breaking the stillness of the surface. Lights drift across the water in patterns that seem deliberate, and faint sounds echo through the forest. Those who remain near the shoreline at night often speak of a strange pull, a quiet force that draws attention toward the center of the lake, compelling observers to watch and wait without understanding why. The forest surrounding Ravenwood Lake is dense and labyrinthine. Paths twist between trees, leading travelers close to the water or deeper into the shadows of the evergreens. Fallen branches and exposed roots make every step deliberate, and the darkness of night amplifies even the smallest sounds. The rustle of leaves, the snap of a twig, or the distant splash of water becomes magnified, heightening awareness and creating a sense of anticipation that is both thrilling and unsettling. Despite the eerie qualities, Ravenwood Lake is not violent. There is no sudden danger, only the subtle tension of the unknown. Visitors describe an experience that is equal parts awe and caution, a mixture of fascination and respect. The lake holds its secrets close, revealing them only in fleeting glimpses and moments that are often left to memory and imagination. The mist thickens as midnight approaches, obscuring the shoreline and blurring the boundary between water and forest. Shapes drift just beneath the surface, suggested but never fully revealed. Lights appear intermittently, small orbs moving slowly in deliberate paths. Each appearance carries a sense of quiet intention, a presence that is both inviting and distant, compelling observers to stay and watch the unfolding scene. By morning, the lake returns to its daytime calm. Mist fades, lights vanish, and the forest resumes its ordinary sounds. Yet the memory of the night lingers with those who have witnessed it. Shadows, ripples, and the sensation of being observed remain in the mind, a reminder that Ravenwood Lake is a place where natural beauty and subtle mystery coexist. Ravenwood Lake endures as a location both serene and enigmatic. Its twisted evergreens, shifting mist, and moving lights create an experience that engages the senses and imagination. Visitors leave with a sense of having glimpsed something extraordinary, a place where every reflection, shadow, and sound carries the weight of hidden stories. A place where every reflection, shadow, and sound carries the weight of hidden stories. The lake remains timeless, a quiet reminder that some corners of the world hold secrets meant to be felt rather than fully understood. The lake remains timeless, a quiet reminder that some corners of the world hold secrets meant to be felt rather than fully understood. Frozen Vale Lake lies deep within a remote valley, often hidden beneath layers of snow and ice that stretch across its surface for much of the year. The surrounding mountains rise sharply, their slopes covered in thick evergreens and frost-laden rock. The landscape is hushed and still, as if the world itself has paused. The lake, buried beneath its frozen veil, appears serene and solid, yet those who spend time near its shores know that it holds secrets beneath the ice. During daylight, the frozen surface gleams in pale sunlight. Snow drifts in soft waves across the ice, and the occasional gust of wind carries the scent of pine and frost. The lake reflects the muted sky, creating a monochrome world of silver and white. Hikers and explorers are drawn to its beauty, captivated by the contrast of stark ice and shadowed forest. Yet even in the brightness of day, there is a subtle unease, an impression that the ice is more than a simple barrier, and that life beneath it stirs in ways that defy explanation. Shadows flit beneath the frozen surface, visible to those who stare long enough. They move slowly, indistinct, and vanish when approached. Visitors often describe a strange motion, like the water beneath the ice is breathing or shifting, hinting at hidden currents or unseen forms. The effect is subtle, yet it leaves an indelible impression, a mixture of awe and quiet apprehension. The air around Frozen Vale Lake carries sounds differently than other places. Voices seem to stretch and bend, echoing across the ice and forest in ways that feel unnatural. Some explorers report hearing whispers that appear to emanate from beneath the frozen surface itself. These faint sounds are often mistaken for the wind, but attentive listeners sense patterns, fleeting fragments of language that vanish as soon as they focus. The phenomenon is subtle yet persistent, adding to the mysterious reputation of the lake. Figures are seen walking across the ice. They appear at the edges, silhouetted against the snow or the pale winter sky. When approached, the figures fade or vanish entirely, leaving only an undisturbed surface. Witnesses describe a tension between curiosity and instinctive caution, compelled to watch yet aware that the sight is transient and enigmatic. The fleeting presence of these shapes reinforces the sense that the lake is alive in ways that are hidden from ordinary perception. Abandoned structures at the shores, relics of a past long forgotten. Small cabins and hunting shacks lean under the weight of snow, their roofs fractured and walls weathered by time. Lights are sometimes reported flickering within, warm glows against the cold and pale landscape. The combination of movement and decay creates a sense of life lingering among the abandoned, as if the lake itself preserves echoes of those who once sought refuge along its edge. As night falls, Frozen Vale Lake takes on an even more haunting aspect. Moonlight glints off the ice, casting long, pale shadows across the surface. The forest around the lake grows dense and silent, and the faint sounds of wildlife blend with whispers that seem to drift from beneath the ice. Figures may appear again, walking with deliberate slowness, only to vanish before they are reached. The flicker of lights in the cabins continues, adding to the surreal atmosphere, blurring the line between reality and imagination. Seasons alter the character of the lake while maintaining its enigmatic presence. Winter dominates, burying the lake under snow and ice for months. Spring brings melting streams and the slow revelation of dark waters, though patches of ice may persist, still hiding whatever shadows move below. Summer and autumn reveal more of the shoreline, with bare rock, fallen leaves, and rippling reflections, yet the sense of quiet mystery remains. No matter the season, the lake carries an aura of hidden depth and restrained energy. Visitors to Frozen Vale Lake are captivated by its mixture of beauty and unease. every ripple of ice, every shadow beneath the surface, and every flicker of light along the cabins contributes to a sense of the extraordinary. Hikers, skiers, and photographers alike report experiences that defy simple explanation, moments that linger in memory long after leaving the lake. It is a place that encourages observation, contemplation, and a cautious respect for forces not immediately visible. Visitors to Frozen Vale Lake are captivated by its mixture of beauty and unease. The frozen expanse seems to hold time in suspension. Movement is measured and deliberate, and every sound is amplified or stretched across the ice. Whispers and echoes blend with the natural ambience of wind and snow, creating an atmosphere that is simultaneously peaceful and unsettling. Those who listen closely may feel a connection to something beneath the surface, a presence that observes without intrusion, an awareness that exists beyond ordinary understanding. By dawn, the ice and snow glow softly in pale light. Mist rises from thinner patches, curling around trees and rocks, softening the sharp lines of the landscape. Shadows retreat, and the whispers fade with the morning breeze. Life returns to the surrounding forest, yet the lake retains its enigmatic presence, a reminder that its beauty conceals mysteries that are rarely fully revealed. Frozen Vale Lake continues to draw those seeking the extraordinary, a destination where Naturia's majesty intertwines with subtle and unexplained phenomena. A place that challenges perception, where shadows move beneath ice, figures appear and vanish, and whispers echo from places unseen. Visitors leave with memories shaped by wonder and unease, a lasting impression of a lake that is at once serene, haunting, and profoundly mysterious. Blackthorn Lake rests in a deep, narrow valley, enclosed on all sides by jagged cliffs that rise like silent sentinels. The water is dark and still, reflecting the shadows of the cliffs and the dense forest that clings to their edges. Even during daylight, the lake carries an air of isolation, as if the walls themselves absorb sound and memory, leaving only a heavy, expectant quiet. Mist often rises from the surface, curling upward in thin, ghostly ribbons. During the night, it thickens, drifting across the water, and along the shoreline in shapes that suggest figures long gone. Hikers who have ventured here speak of glimpses of travelers from another time, their forms pale and indistinct, moving slowly through the fog. Approaching them causes them to vanish, leaving only the impression of presence, a lingering echo of movement and life. The cliffs amplify every sound. A footstep on loose rock reverberates, bouncing off the canyon walls and returning in faint echoes. Even the smallest disturbance in the water or rustle in the trees seems magnified, carrying an eerie rhythm that unsettles the senses. Whispers are sometimes reported, carried on the wind and bouncing unpredictably between cliff faces, leaving hikers unsure whether they are imagining or hearing something real. The shoreline is uneven and rugged. Rocks jet into the water, and narrow paths wind along the edges, sometimes leading to abrupt drops or hidden coves. Snow or frost in the colder months enhances the silence, softening footsteps and creating an almost dreamlike quality to the landscape. Visitors often notice that the paths they take seem longer than expected, or that turns and bends appear where none were before, as if the terrain subtly shifts under observation. Shadows along Blackthorn Lake behave strangely. At times they appear larger, stretching unnaturally along the cliffs or across the water. The sensation grows stronger at night, when the mist thickens and visibility is limited. The forest surrounding the cliffs adds to the lake's isolation. Pine and fir trees grow thickly, their branches brushing against one another and muffling distant sounds. The wind passing through these trees produces haunting, fluctuating tones, creating a soundtrack that seems alive, as though the forest itself is watching. Birds avoid the immediate vicinity of the water, leaving the area strangely quiet, broken only by the occasional snap of a branch or a distant rockfall. Blackthorn Lake is particularly striking under moonlight. The cliffs catch the pale glow, casting elongated shadows across the water. Mist rising from the lake transforms into a silver haze, enhancing the sense that the landscape is not entirely of this world. Figures sometimes seem to emerge from the fog, just at the edge of perception. They appear stationary at first, watching silently, then dissolve into the night when approached. Travelers have described the water as reflective in unusual ways. The surface captures not only the cliffs and sky, but hints at shapes and movements that are not part of the surrounding landscape. Ripples can form without wind, shadows shift across the surface, and reflections seem to mimic the presence of those who watch, creating a sense of interaction between the visitor and the lake itself. Footpaths along the shore sometimes hold traces of movement that defy explanation. Footprints appear and disappear, seeming to follow travelers, yet no one else is present. Some hikers recount that as they move along these paths, shapes in the mist mimic their steps or glance toward them, only to vanish when confronted. The effect is subtle but persistent, creating tension and a feeling of being watched by an unseen companion. The cliffs themselves seem to possess memory. Patterns in the rock and snow occasionally resemble figures frozen in place, fleetingly suggesting human or animal forms. When observed from a distance, they appear to move or shift slightly, a trick of perspective that adds to the lake's mysterious reputation. Even experienced hikers report second-guessing their eyes, uncertain whether what they see is natural or something beyond explanation. Nightfall at Blackthorn Lake heightens every sensation. Mist thickens to cover most of the water, muffling sound and distorting shapes. The silhouettes of cliffs loom larger, and shadows stretch across paths and rocks. Whispers, fleeting and unintelligible, travel across the lake, mingling with the rustle of the trees and the occasional movement in the mist. Every step feels amplified, each breath carried on the cold air, leaving hikers aware of the presence that surrounds them. The Lakia-esque reflective surface at night is mesmerizing. Moonlight shimmers across the water, highlighting subtle ripples. Figures, whether real or imagined, glide in and out of perception. The air carries a tangible weight, a sense that Blackthorn Lake itself observes those who linger, recording movements, intentions, and even hesitation. Even in daylight, the lake maintains its quiet tension. The cliffs, the mist, and the water form a natural amphitheater of isolation. Sound behaves strangely, shadows linger, and shapes occasionally appear at the edge of vision. Hikers often leave with a sense that the lake is alive in a subtle, persistent way, shaping their perception and leaving impressions that linger long after departure. Blackthorn Lake is a place of beauty and unease, suspended between the natural and the mysterious. Every visitor encounters it differently. All carry away the impression of a landscape that observes and remembers. The mist, the shadows, and the cliffs combine to create an atmosphere that is immersive and unforgettable, leaving a lasting sense of wonder and apprehension. The valley and its lake exist apart from ordinary perception, a space where reflection, presence, and the unknown converge. A space where reflection, presence, and the unknown converge. They hold memory, shadow, and the subtle tension of being watched by a world that does not entirely belong to the living. Shadowmere Lake stretches across a quiet valley, its surface calm and reflective during the day. Sunlight glimmers off the water, and the surrounding forest mirrors itself perfectly along the shoreline. Birds sing softly, and the gentle rustle of leaves completes the scene, creating a serene and peaceful atmosphere that draws visitors seeking solitude and natural beauty. Yet as daylight fades, the lake transforms. Shadows begin to shift across the water, moving in ways that seem deliberate yet impossible to trace. Ripples form without wind, distorting the mirrored surface, and shapes appear at the periphery of vision, only to vanish when approached. The tranquil lake takes on an uncanny quality, as if the world itself has altered slightly while observers were distracted. Evening brings a subtle, chilling presence. Lights sometimes flicker within the trees along the shoreline, pale and distant, appearing without visible source. Hikers and visitors report hearing footsteps crunching on fallen leaves behind them, yet when they turn, the forest is empty. Shadows glide between the trees and along the water's edge, always just out of reach, leaving a lingering impression of being watched. The air around Shadowmere Lake grows cooler at night, and mist often rises from the surface in delicate swirls. The fog softens the forest edges and conceals the terrain, creating a labyrinth of softened shapes and indistinct outlines. Within this mist, the presence of unseen watchers is almost palpable. Some feel subtle touches, as though a breeze is brushed against skin, but the sensation carries a weight that is difficult to explain. Some feel subtle touches, as though a breeze is brushed against skin, but the sensation carries a weight that is difficult to explain. The sensation carries a weight that is difficult to explain. Reflections on the lake's surface become disorienting after dark. Trees and rocks mirror themselves with slight distortions, and fleeting shapes can be seen in the water that have no apparent origin. Visitors describe seeing figures that move independently of the shore, gliding across the lake and disappearing when directly observed. The interplay of light, shadow, and reflection enhances the sense that Shadowmere Lake is alive in a quiet, enigmatic way. The surrounding forest amplifies the eerie atmosphere. Trees grow densely along the edges, their branches arching over the water in natural corridors. The mist winds through these branches, softening sounds and creating an environment where perception becomes uncertain. Leaves rustle in ways that mimic footsteps, and distant animal calls sometimes resemble faint, human-like sounds. Each step taken along the shoreline is measured and cautious, as if the lake itself tests those who walk near it. Visitors often report a sense of compulsion near the water's edge. The shadows, the lights in the trees, and the subtle movements in the mist all draw attention toward the lake. Some describe a desire to peer beneath the surface, sensing depth and movement beyond what is visible. The feeling is subtle yet persistent, a reminder that the lake is not merely a scenic location, but a presence with awareness. Nightfall intensifies Alakia's mysterious character. The water glows with reflections of the moon and stars, blending with the fog in ways that make the boundary between water and air difficult to discern. Figures may appear at the edge of vision, standing or moving slowly, and vanish when approached. Footsteps and whispers seem to travel unusually far, echoing across the valley, and the stillness of the forest heightens the sense of observation. Shadowmere Lake preserves a quiet memory of past events. Glimpses of fleeting figures, unexplained ripples, and strange lights suggest that the lake holds fragments of history within its depths. The atmosphere is subtle, not overtly threatening, but it leaves a lasting impression on those who witness its phenomena. Each visitor experiences a lake in a personal way, noticing different shapes, sound, and feelings, yet all share the sensation of being in the presence of something beyond ordinary understanding. The balance between beauty and unease is what defines Shadowmere Lake. By day, it is serene, a mirror of the surrounding forest and sky. By night, it becomes a place of mystery, where shadows move independently. Lights appear without source, and the unseen presence of watchers is strongly felt. The lake offers an experience that engages both curiosity and caution, drawing travelers who are intrigued by its secrets and willing to respect its quiet authority. Despite its enigmatic nature, Shadowmere Lake continues to attract visitors. Photographers, hikers, and nature enthusiasts are drawn to its reflective waters, dense forest, and shifting mists. Yet every person leaves with a heightened awareness that the lake is more than scenery. It is a living presence, a keeper of shadows and whispers, and a landscape where the boundaries between seen and unseen, real and imagined, are delicate and ever-shifting. Shadowmere Lake endures through the seasons, patient and unchanging. Its waters reflect sky, forest, and visitors alike, while holding mysteries beneath the surface. And within the fog, the lake invites observation but resists full understanding, creating an experience that is immersive, haunting, and unforgettable. For those who venture near, it offers both beauty and the subtle tension of being watched. A place where curiosity and caution coexist under the quiet gaze of shadow and mist. Whispervale Lake lies in a hidden valley, surrounded by dense forests and rolling hills. Its waters are dark and still, reflecting the trees and sky with an almost unnatural clarity. Even during the day, the lake carries an air of quiet tension, a subtle awareness that seems to linger just beyond perception. The surface of the lake is often covered in a thin layer of mist that drifts and curls with the slightest breeze. The mist softens the edges of the shoreline and the surrounding forest, giving the entire area an ethereal quality. Hikers and travelers who approach the water report a faint sound, almost like whispered voices carried across the surface, constant and barely perceptible. Sunlight glints off the water during the day, revealing shadows that seem slightly out of place. Trees appear taller, their branches twisting in ways that create patterns on the ground. The forest seems alive with motion, yet the movement is subtle, almost imperceptible, leaving visitors unsure if what they see is real or a trick of light and reflection. As evening falls, the lake begins to transform. Mist thickens and swirls across the water, forming shapes. These shapes often appear to mimic the movements of those standing near the shore. Travelers have described stepping closer to investigate, only to watch the figures vanish, leaving behind a quiet ripple of water and a lingering sense of curiosity. The whispers that drift across Whispervale Lake become more distinct at night. They seem to come from the water itself, soft and fleeting, echoing faintly through the surrounding forest. Campers near the shoreline speak of moments when the whispers appear to form words, fragmented conversations, or memories, though they are never fully understandable. The experience is subtle, yet profoundly unsettling, as if the lake remembers every step and voice that has come near it. The forest surrounding the lake adds to the atmosphere of mystery. Ancient trees rise on the edges of the water, their twisted roots partially submerged. The wind moves the branches unpredictably, carrying sounds that seem both near and far. Every rustle of leaves or distant snap of a twig feels amplified, as though the environment itself is attuned to the presence of visitors. Sometimes, the lake seems to replay moments from the past. Ripples form without wind, echoing movements of unseen entities beneath the surface. Hikers have described glimpsing shapes that appear to move in familiar patterns, almost like memories of those who have vanished. These experiences are fleeting and delicate, leaving behind a haunting impression that persists long after the observer has left. Shadows along the shoreline move in ways that defy expectation. A shape may appear to step forward, only to dissolve when approached. Lights occasionally glimmer beneath the surface, small and brief, like fragment of memory or the reflection of distant stars. Each of these moments reinforces the sense that Whispervale Lake is not simply water and forest, but a living space with its own rhythm and awareness. Despite the lake's eerie qualities, there is a profound beauty that captivates those who visit. The stillness of the water, the delicate mist, and the interplay of light and shadow create an experience that is both serene and mysterious. Travelers leave with a sense that they have glimpsed something rare and intangible, a place where the natural world blends seamlessly with something beyond understanding. Visitors often describe a feeling of being gently guided by the lake, a subtle pull toward the center of the water. The sensation is not threatening, but compelling, as if the lake itself wishes to be observed, to be remembered. Every ripple, every shadow, and every whisper seems purposeful, part of a larger pattern that only the lake fully understands. Even in daylight, the echoes of the night linger. Mist rises in soft folds along the shore, shadows twist subtly in the water, and the whispers are faint but present. The experience of Whispervale Lake is cumulative, building over hours or days of observation, leaving visitors with a sense of quiet, awe, and respect. It is a place where the ordinary meets the extraordinary, and where memory, nature, and subtle mystery converge. Whispervale Lake endures as a location both serene and enigmatic. Its dark waters, shifting mist, and ephemeral whispers create an experience that engages imagination and senses. Those who walk its shores often leave with stories and memories that linger long after they have departed, a reminder that some places are meant to be felt rather than fully understood. The lake remains timeless, a quiet witness to every footstep, every whisper, and every fleeting shape that passes along its shore. Frost Shadow Lake rests high on a mountain ledge, cradled by jagged peaks and dense pine forests. Its waters glint with icy clarity during the day, reflecting the surrounding cliffs and the open sky. The lake appears tranquil, inviting hikers to pause and take in the breathtaking views. Yet even in sunlight, there is a subtle tension in the air, a feeling that the lake holds secrets beyond the ordinary. and that those who linger too long may sense the presence of something unseen. The approach to Frost Shadow Lake is both beautiful and daunting. Narrow trails wind through steep slopes, occasionally opening to reveal glimpses of the water below. The sound of wind moving through the pines carries in unusual ways, sometimes echoing across the ledges and creating the illusion of distant voices. The forest seems to watch, the shadows shifting in patterns that are difficult to explain. Every step feels measured, as though the lake itself is aware of those who come near. Along the shoreline, shadowy figures are often reported by visitors. These figures appear just at the edges of vision, standing among the trees or gliding across the water-esque surface. When approached, these shapes vanish without a trace, leaving only the ripple of the lake and the faint scent of pine, leaving observers unsure if they have witnessed something real or the Minda-esque response to the isolated, high-altitude environment. Mist often drifts across Frost Shadow Lake, curling around rocks and trees in ghostly tendrils. Within the fog, whispers and faint footsteps can be heard, carried on the wind in ways that seem almost intentional. Some explorers describe the smell of smoke as though from long-extinct cabins that once dotted the mountainside. These sensory impressions enhance the mysterious atmosphere, creating the sense that the lake exists in a space where past and present intersect and where memories linger long after people have gone. The water itself seems to hold an unusual energy. Visitors sometimes feel an inexplicable tug at their feet when standing near the edge, as though unseen hands beneath the surface are interacting with them. Kayakers and anglers have reported brief chills and subtle shifts in the current that cannot be explained by wind or terrain. The lake is alive in its own way, a presence that is felt more than seen, a quiet force that inspires both awe and caution. Twilight transforms Frost Shadow Lake into an even more mysterious place. Shadows stretch across the banks, and the mist thickens, obscuring the far shore. Sound becomes more pronounced in the quiet evening air. Footsteps that cannot be traced echo through the fog, and whispers seem to rise from the water itself. Lantern-like glows are sometimes reported along the edges of the lake, appearing briefly before fading into darkness. Every element contributes to a sense that the lake is not just a body of water, but a realm where perception and reality blur. The surrounding forest mirrors the Lakia's enigmatic character. Pines stand in silent rows, their needles glistening with frost. Fallen branches and rocks create natural sculptures. Animals move cautiously, and their calls are rare. The combination of isolation, elevation, and natural beauty makes the experience unforgettable, leaving visitors with impressions that linger long after they descend the mountain. Seasonal changes add further layers to the Lakia's allure. In winter, the surface freezes and the snow thickens, creating a silent expanse of white. Mist hovers close to the ice, and shadows move beneath its surface as though the lake breathes. Spring melts bring rushing streams and waterfalls, the sound of flowing water contrasting with persistent whispers carried by the wind. Summer warms the trails, revealing the forest's rich greenery, yet the shadows and occasional spectral glimpses remind visitors that the Lakia's mysteries are never fully absent. Autumn paints the mountainside in deep reds and golds, and fallen leaves drift across the surface, creating patterns that shimmer in the pale light. Each season highlights both the Lakia's beauty and its unexplainable phenomena. Visitors often describe a complex mix of emotions while at Frost Shadow Lake. Awe at the pristine natural beauty, tension in the presence of fleeting shadows, and curiosity sparked by the unexplained phenomena. Some return multiple times, seeking to capture glimpses of the figures, or to feel the subtle tug of the water. Each encounter is unique, a personal journey into a landscape that is at once familiar and unsettling, grounded in reality yet tinged with the extraordinary. Each encounter is a journey into the unknown, into a realm where the laws of nature are tested, and the fabric of reality is woven and unwoven in a dance of light and shadow, grounded in the unknown, and yet tinged with the familiar. Each encounter is a journey into the heart of the unknown, into a realm where the laws of reality are tested, and the fabric of reality is woven and unwoven in a dance of light and shadow. Each encounter is a journey into the unknown, into a realm where the laws of nature are tested, and the fabric of reality is woven and unwoven in a dance of light and shadow. Some return multiple times, seeking to capture glimpses of the figures or to feel the subtle tug of the water. Each encounter is a unique, personal journey into a landscape that is at once familiar and unsettling, grounded in reality yet tinged with the extraordinary. Some return multiple times, seeking to capture glimpses of the figures or to feel the subtle tug of the water. Each encounter is a journey into the heart of the unknown, into a realm where the laws of nature are tested, and the fabric of reality is woven and unwoven in a dance of light and shadow. Each encounter is a journey into the unknown, into a realm where the laws of nature are tested, and the fabric of reality is woven and unwoven in a dance of light and shadow. Visitors often describe a complex mix of emotions while at Frost Shadow Lake. Awe at the pristine natural beauty, tension in the presence of fleeting shadows, and curiosity sparked by the unexplained phenomena. Some return multiple times, seeking to capture glimpses of the figures, or to feel the subtle tug of the water. Each encounter is a unique, personal journey into a landscape that is at once familiar and unsettling, grounded in reality yet tinged with the extraordinary. By dawn, the lake softens under early sunlight. Mist rises in the water, curling around tree trunks and boulders. Shadows retreat and the whispers fade, leaving only the gentle lapping of water and the rustle of the forest. The mountains, the trees, and the water together create a space that feels alive, where the past lingers and the unseen remains just out of reach. The atmosphere is melancholic, mysterious, and supernaturally dreadful. Frost Shadow Lake continues to captivate those who seek it. Its shadowed figures, whispered sounds, and subtle interactions with visitors make it a place of wonder and quiet unease, where natural beauty intertwines with subtle mystery, where every ripple, shadow, and gust of wind contributes to a living story. Visitors leave with memories that endure, carrying the impression of a place where the ordinary and extraordinary coexist in perfect balance. A lake that remains as enigmatic as it is breathtaking. Silent Hollow Lake rests in a remote valley, shrouded by steep cliffs and dense evergreens that seem to guard its dark waters. The lake stretches wide, its surface frozen for much of the year, reflecting the pale light of the moon and the faint shimmer of distant stars. Even in daylight, the water holds a strange stillness, as though time itself slows here, and the landscape observes every movement with quiet patience. Travelers who approach the lake speak of an immediate change in the air. A chill settles deep into bones, heavier than ordinary cold, and the silence becomes almost tangible. The forest around the valley seems to lean inward, enclosing the lake in a hushed amphitheater of shadow and stillness. Footsteps on the snow or ice are muffled yet amplified in perception, echoing subtly across the frozen expanse. Glowing lights are often reported beneath the surface of the ice. They flicker and move unpredictably, forming patterns that suggest intent, yet vanish when approached directly. The effect is mesmerizing, captivating the eyes while sending a shiver through the body. Some describe the lights as small, orb-like forms drifting just below the ice, their movements deliberate and haunting, hinting at life where there should be none. Shadows play an important role in the lake's eerie reputation, twisting along the shoreline and beneath the ice, sometimes stretching unnaturally or breaking into shapes that suggest figures watching from the depths. Hikers and explorers frequently report a sense of being observed, a feeling that grows more intense the closer they move to the water. Every step across the frozen ground brings awareness of presence, a subtle tension that is impossible to ignore. Whispers travel on the wind around Silent Hollow Lake. They are faint at first, sometimes sounding like the rustle of branches, and then sharpen, carrying syllables that seem familiar yet cannot be understood. Travelers report that the whispers call their names or mimic words spoken long before, creating the unsettling impression that the lake itself remembers every visitor and is capable of reaching across time to interact with them. The ice covering the lake is both beautiful and dangerous. Cracks glint in the moonlight, spreading like delicate veins across the surface. Snow drifts settle in the hollows, masking thinner areas and creating illusions of stability. Shapes can appear beneath the ice, dark silhouettes gliding silently, vanishing when approached. These glimpses suggest a depth far greater than the frozen surface alone, hinting at secrets held within the lake for countless years. The surrounding cliffs add to the sense of isolation and foreboding. Their jagged forms rise sharply above the lake, reflecting in the frozen water and creating long, distorted shadows. Rock faces catch moonlight in ways that can make ordinary formations appear humanoid, intensifying the impression of watchers perched above, observing intruders who dare to step onto the ice. Even experienced hikers note the subtle ways the cliffs seem to shift perception, shaping light, shadow, and sound to the lake's effect. Mist occasionally rises from the lake, especially near cracks in the ice or along warmer sections of the water. Curls upward like smoke, forming ephemeral figures that seem to move with purpose. Within this fog, shadows are amplified, the ice appears darker, and the air carries a weight that is both silent and oppressive. The mist obscures paths along the shore, adding to the uncertainty of footing, and reinforcing the Lakia's enigmatic presence. Sound behaves strangely near Silent Hollow Lake. A falling branch or a distant rockslide is amplified and distorted, echoing across the valley as though it originates from the water itself. The ice can groan or shift unexpectedly, producing vibrations that travel through snow and rock, creating a sensation of movement beneath the feet. Even the softest sound seems to invite a response, reinforcing the sense that the lake is aware and engaged with all who enter its domain. Visitors report that lingering too long brings an almost magnetic pull. The lake does not threaten aggressively, yet exerts a subtle influence, drawing attention and focus toward its center. Shapes beneath the ice, the movement of shadows, and the whispering wind combine to create a sensation that is hypnotic and inescapable. Many leave with the lingering impression that the lake has tested their courage, recording the moments of hesitation and observation in silence. Nightfall at Silent Hollow Lake amplifies every element of its mystery. Moonlight transforms the ice into a shifting mosaic of silver and shadow. Figures appear beneath the surface, moving gracefully, yet disappearing when one moves closer. Whispers swirl on the wind, the mist thickens, and shadows stretch across the frozen landscape. Each moment is heightened, creating a rhythm that is both mesmerizing and deeply unnerving. Even during the daytime, the lake retains its eerie quality. Reflections of cliffs and trees are slightly distorted, and the surface can ripple without wind. Footsteps in snow may shift unexpectedly, forming paths that seem to guide or confuse. The subtle tension persists, reminding all who approach that Silent Hollow Lake is not merely a landscape, but a presence, a living observer that watches, remembers, and waits. The valley and the lake exist in a space removed from ordinary time. The ice, mist, shadows, and whispers combine to create an atmosphere that is immersive and unforgettable. Visitors leave with a sense that they have encountered more than water and cliffs. They have glimpsed a living memory, a realm where the natural world and the unknown converge in a delicate, haunting balance. Silent Hollow Lake is a final threshold, a place of beauty, tension, and lingering mystery. The frozen surface, the shifting mist, the glimmering lights, and the whispers all create a landscape that is alive with subtle power. For those brave or curious enough to approach, the lake offers an unforgettable experience, a reminder that some places exist beyond understanding, holding memory, presence, and a quiet, patient watchfulness that endures long after departure. Colorado's mountain lakes are more than scenic wonders. They are mirrors of history, memory, and tragedy. Phantom figures, glowing lights, whispers on the wind, and icy presences tell tales of lives interrupted and spirits that linger. As you explore these haunted waters, remember that the beauty of the mountains conceals stories darker than snow or stone. The lakes remember those who came before, echoing their presence in every ripple and mist. Should you venture to their shores, tread carefully, listen closely, and never forget that some waters are alive with memories of the past. May your courage remain steadfast, your senses sharp, and your heart steady. For the haunted mountain lakes of Colorado watch silently, waiting for those who dare to witness their secrets.